National Human Rights Commission Nepal directs government to facilitate fuel distribution, urges government to end shortages. Kathmandu garbage disposal comes to a halt following strike by disposal site locals citing unfulfilled agreements. Kathmandu air pollution sees temporary drop. Rain improves AQI, but experts warn long-term measures are crucial. Cherry blossoms bloom in Kathmandu Valley. Ponyu trees symbolize hope and renewal amid Nepal's changing times. Israel targets over 200 sites in Iran as tensions escalate. Lebanese bridge destroyed in strikes on Hezbollah. And Nepali team embarks for Delhi to participate in IAU 50-kilometer World Championships. 5-member team bid farewell at the airport. Good evening, I am April Agisinglama. Welcome to NTV World Primetime News. We're coming to you live from Kathmandu at 1900 hours Nepal time. Elsewhere, it's 13:15 in London, 22:15 in Tokyo, and just after midnight in Sydney. Now the news in details. Nepal's National Human Rights Commission has urged the government to ensure the smooth distribution of petroleum products amid recent shortages. In a statement issued by Deputy Secretary Shyam Babu Kafle, the Commission also called for action against artificial shortages and the hoarding of essential fuel. The Commission highlighted the responsibility of authorities, including the Nepal Oil Corporation and the Department of Commerce, to maintain timely supply and protect consumer rights. Recent tensions in the Middle East have reportedly contributed to limited availability of LPG gas in the Kathmandu Valley, causing public concern and panic. The Commission stressed that immediate and effective measures are needed to stabilize supply and prevent further disruption of essential commodities. Garbage disposal from Kathmandu Valley has been halted at Bansare Dada due to local protest over unfulfilled agreements with city authorities. Residents of the area, including parts of Kakani in Nuakot and Dhunbesi in Dhading, have blocked waste-carrying vehicles, demanding the implementation of previous commitments by the Kathmandu Metropolitan City and the Ministry of Urban Development. Local leaders, including community representatives and political figures, have voiced support for the protest, emphasizing the impact of delayed loan agreements on their communities. Earlier in mid-November, a temporary resolution was reached after assurances from the Urban Development Minister Kulman Gising. However, the agreements is yet to materialize. The standoff continues, highlighting ongoing challenges in urban waste management and citizen government coordination in Nepal. Nepal's Passport Department under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced temporary disruptions in passport services due to the installation of a new system. Services at district offices, area administrations and Nepali missions abroad may be closed for 1 to 3 days during the transition, with the overall process potentially affected for up to a week. Officials warn that it could take 1 to 3 months for the new system to stabilize, which may delay passport preparation and issuance during this period. Citizens planning to travel in the next 5 months are urged to obtain passports before the interim closure comes into effect. The department has stated that an official notification regarding the new system will be issued soon. Now, in other news, air pollution in Kathmandu Valley and other major Nepali cities has started to decrease after recent spikes caused by cloudy weather. The air quality index AQI fell from 178 to 149, while Kathmandu dropped from the second most polluted city in the world to 12th place. Authorities attribute the improvement to rainfall on Thursday, which helped settle dust and airborne particles. Director General of the Department of Environment, Gyanraj Subedi, emphasized that sustained reduction in pollution requires proper waste management, fire control, vehicle emission testing, and strict enforcement of environmental standards. It is warned that while weather can temporarily improve air quality, long-term measures are needed to keep pollution under control in rapidly urbanizing areas. Let's take a short break here. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Preliminary reports indicate that candidates in Nepal's March 5 House of Representatives election spent far more than the legal limits set by the Election Commission. Observers from the National Election Observation Committee and the Election Observation Committee Nepal found that actual spending in some constituencies was up to 10 times higher than the prescribed limits of 3.3 million Nepali rupees for first-past-the-post candidates and 200,000 rupees for proportional system, digital and social media advertising, with compliance with the Election Code of Conduct and limited voter education. While public trust in the Election Commission remained high, observers noted gaps in explaining voting procedures and ensuring equal access to election information, especially in remote areas. A detailed investigation into campaign expenses and methods is expected to be published separately in the coming weeks. Now, Mohan Prasad Oli, father of CPNUMO chairperson and former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, was laid to rest today at Pasupati Arya Ghat in Kathmandu. Oli passed away at the age of 97 while receiving treatment at the Nepal-Korea Friends Municipality Hospital in Bhaktapur. Chair Oli, the eldest son, offered the funeral lamp over his father's cremation pyre. Several senior political leaders and dignitaries, including Nepali Congress President Gagan Kumar Thapa, former Prime Ministers Chalanath Khanal and KP Sharma Oli's party colleagues, attended to pay their respects. The funeral drew widespread attention, highlighting Mohan Prasad Oli's long-standing presence and respect in Nepalese political and social circles. Many young Nepalis are leaving the country to find work abroad, highlighting the nation's ongoing employment challenges. Amid this trend, some entrepreneurs are finding success at home in Syangza, turning vegetable farming into a profitable business. For over 22 years, the local entrepreneurs have been cultivating seasonal and non-seasonal vegetables such as cauliflower, cabbage, bitter gourd, and cucumber on area expanding up to roughly half a hectare farm, selling them directly from his home and earning between 800,000 to 1 million Nepali rupees annually. Their success demonstrates that Nepal's agriculture sector, when managed with modern techniques, proper market access and government support, can offer viable income and business opportunities. Their stories are inspiring young people to consider local entrepreneurship in agriculture rather than seeking employment overseas. Cherry blossoms have once again painted parts of the Kathmandu Valley in soft shades of pink and white this spring. As our colleague strolls along the valley's busy roads, he pauses beneath the delicate poinyu blossoms to explore their brief yet beautiful bloom and the meaning they seem to hold at a time when Nepal itself is navigating change and many people are looking ahead with hope for a better tomorrow. Our colleague Diksha Awasthi brings more.
As we've come to mid-March, spring has quietly arrived in Kathmandu. After months of winter's quiet gloom, the city has begun to blush again. Walking along the capital Kathmandu's roads, cherry blossoms greet with delicate pink and white petals. In Nepal, they are often called payu, while across the world, they are known as sakura. From Naxal to Lazimpat and stretching toward Tinkune, the trees are still alive in mid-March. Cherry blossoms usually appear from late February to mid-March. Their beauty, however, is famously brief. The flowers bloom for only a few weeks before drifting away with the wind. And perhaps that fleeting nature is what makes them so special. Especially in Japan, sakura holds a deep cultural significance. Cherry blossoms symbolize renewal, optimism, and the transient nature of life. In Kathmandu, petals sometimes float through the air like soft confetti, settling on pavements and roads like a pink carpet. But these blossoms are not entirely native to the valley. Many of Kathmandu's cherry blossom trees were planted decades ago as ornamental trees, some introduced through international exchanges, including collaboration with Japan. Over time, they quietly became part of the city's landscape. Coincidentally, this spring arrives as Nepal itself stands at a turning point. As the country navigates a shifting political landscape and high public expectations, these fragile blossoms seem to carry a special message. Just like the payu blooms, soft yet hopeful, many Nepalis are looking toward the future with optimism for a more promising tomorrow. For now, Kathmandu breathes in clear skies and vibrant petals. It reminds that in the busiest city like Kathmandu, nature finds its way to bloom. Diksha Awasthi with camera person Rasila Shrestha reporting for NTV World.
Time for international updates after a short break. Deadly explosions rocked Tehran on Friday near a pro-government rally attended by senior officials as Israel and Iran launched fresh strikes in a war that erupted on February 28 with US-Israeli attacks on Iran. International journalists reported loud blasts over the city while Israel's military said it had struck more than 200 targets in western and central Iran in the past day. Iranian state media said at least one person was killed when explosions hit an area near a demonstration marking Quds Day. Officials including President Masoud Pezeshkian, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Security Council Secretary Ali Larijani attended the rally, which coincided with mass Quds Day gatherings in Tehran and Mashhad. The day, an initiative launched by the late founder of the Islamic Republic, Ruhollah Khomeini, is held annually on the last Friday of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan in support of the Palestinian people. A bridge was destroyed over the Litani River in southern Lebanon following a strike by the Israel Defense Forces on what it said was a crucial crossing point for Hezbollah terrorists. The Israeli military on Thursday expanded its evacuation warning for residents in southern Lebanon to include areas north of the Litani River, saying it would operate against Hezbollah there. The warning was issued by the military's Arabic language spokesperson, Avichai Adai, in a post on X, in which he urged the residents to move immediately north of the Zarani River, about 40 kilometers from the Israeli border. The Israeli army have also released footage on March 12 of what it says are strikes carried out in Iran. Over the past day, dozens of Israeli Air Force fighter jets carried out 20 large-scale strikes in western and central Iran, according to the Israeli military. Moving on, China said on Friday it will donate $200,000 to the parents of students killed in what it called an indiscriminate missile strike on a school in Iran early in the Middle East war. Iranian media reports said funerals were held for at least 165 people, including children, killed in the strike. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun called the strike a severe violation of international humanitarian law.
我们对伊朗霍尔木兹干省沙贾雷塔耶贝小学遇难学生表示深切哀悼，向遇难学生家属致以诚挚慰问。中国红十字会决定向伊朗红新月会提供20万美元紧急人道主义援助，专门用于慰问和抚恤遇难学生家长。中方愿继续本着人道主义精神，向伊方提供必要帮助，支持伊朗人民渡过难关。
8 Islamic and Arab countries in Thursday condemned Israel for keeping Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem closed during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Israel has shut all holy sites in East Jerusalem's old city for security reasons after it began airstrikes with the United States against Iran that have sparked a regional war. The closure coincides with Ramadan, when tens of thousands of Palestinian Muslims would normally pray every Friday at the Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. The foreign ministers of Egypt, Jordan and the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Pakistan said continuing to restrict access was illegal and unjustified and provocative against worshippers.
8 countries issued a joint press release on closure of the gates of Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is a very disturbing development, particularly since it's taking place in the last Ashra of this holy month. So whilst everybody wants to go to Al-Aqsa Mosque and pray there in these around the clock, but particularly more so in these last 10 days of Ramadan. So it's extremely deplorable. We issued a joint statement and we called upon the Israeli authorities to open these gates forthwith. And of course, these issues will be taken up at the relevant international forum.
More international updates coming up, but before a short break. Security has been tightened at Malala Rajapaksa International Airport ahead of the repatriation of 84 Iranian sailors who died when their frigate IRIS Dana was torpedoed on March 4 just off the coast of Sri Lanka. The sailors were killed when the vessel was sunk by a U.S. submarine in an incident that extended the Middle East war to the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka's foreign ministry said all domestic procedures have been completed and Iran will send a chartered aircraft to return the remains on Friday. A local undertaker said the embalmed remains of the Iranian sailors were being sent back in sealed boxes. They are to be flown out of Sri Lanka from Malala International Airport in the south of the country, officials said, as security was stepped up at the airport, which is located within a wildlife sanctuary. Sri Lanka is currently hosting 251 Iranian sailors, including 32 rescued from the Dana, some of whom remain under care or are being held at an Air Force base in the south. 3 crew members believed to be trapped aboard a Thai bulk carrier hit by projectiles while traveling through the crucial Strait of Hormuz were yet to be rescued on Thursday, the vessel's owners said. Iran's Revolutionary Guards said Wednesday they had struck the Thai-registered Mayuri Nari as well as a Liberia-flagged vessel in the strait because the ships had ignored warnings. The Thai ship was struck Wednesday morning while transiting through the Gulf waterway after departing Khalifa port in the UAE.
Thailand is not a party to the conflict. We are a neutral party. That vessel didn't carry anything in terms of which would be of strategic assets or strategic importance. You know, there were no. It did not carry any oil, gas. I think it was bulk cargo, and so and I think that had to be that should have been taken into consideration.
The United States has lifted its sanctions on the sale of Russian oil for 1 month. The decision came after Iran restricted the movement of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz in response to pressure over Israeli and U.S. attacks, leading to a rise in global oil prices. The Strait of Hormuz is a key route for oil exports from West Asian countries and accounts for about 25% of the world's oil supply. Oil prices rose above $100 per barrel on Thursday, and stock markets also fell, prompting the U.S. to remove the restrictions, although it said purchases would be limited to oil currently being carried by tankers at sea. The U.S. had imposed sanctions on Russian oil sales, accusing Russia of using oil revenues to finance the war in Ukraine. In other news, Afghan authorities said Pakistani attacks on Kabul and several border provinces killed 4 people in the capital and 2 in the east, marking the latest deadly clashes between the neighbors. Pakistani security sources said 4 terrorist camps and support infrastructure were targeted and destroyed in Kabul and frontier provinces, along with an oil sortage facility at Kandahar International Airport. Islamabad launched the military operation last month against Afghanistan, saying it was targeting Islamist extremists following a rise in attacks in Pakistan. Kabul police spokesperson Khalil Zadran said 4 people were killed and 15 wounded when homes were hit in the capital, with women and children among the victims. The Taliban government denied involvement in militancy, while Pakistan insisted it had not killed civilians, though casualty claims from both sides remain difficult to independently verify. Canada is investing heavily in new icebreakers as part of efforts to strengthen its presence in the increasingly contested Arctic, with construction underway at a major shipyard in North Vancouver. Prime Minister Mark Carney recently announced nearly 35 billion Canadian dollars for 25.7 billion US dollars in Arctic funding, most of it aimed at upgrading existing military infrastructure. 2 new icebreakers costing more than 3 billion Canadian dollars each are being built, including one at Seaspan and another partly constructed in Finland. The investment comes as melting Arctic ice opens access to minerals and new shipping routes, intensifying competition and strategic interest in the region. Analysts say expanding the fleet is seen as key to reinforcing Canada's economic and strategic presence in the Arctic while supporting its role within NATO. Now to latest updates from sports. A 5-member Nepali team, including 4 athletes, has departed for New Delhi, India, to compete in the IAU 50-kilometer World Championship on Saturday. Nepal will be represented equally in both male and female categories, with Tilak Bahadur Sunwar and Remes Limbu competing in the men's race, and Sunsari Rokaya and Lakpanima Sherpa in the women's race. Rajan Khatri, Senior Vice President of the Nepal Adventure Running Federation, is leading the team as manager. National Sports Council member Sant Kumar Mehta saw off the athletes at Tribhuvan International Airport, wishing them success. The team aims to showcase Nepal's growing presence in international long-distance running events. Now, before we wrap up, let's take a look at the headlines once again. National Human Rights Commission Nepal directs government to facilitate fuel distribution, urges government to end shortages. Kathmandu garbage disposal comes to a halt following strike by disposal site locals citing unfulfilled agreements. Kathmandu air pollution sees temporary drop. Rain improves AQI, but experts warn long-term measures are crucial. Cherry blossoms bloom in Kathmandu Valley. Poinyu trees symbolize hope and renewal amid Nepal's changing times. Israel targets over 200 sites in Iran as tensions escalate. Lebanese bridge destroyed in strikes on Hezbollah. A Nepali team embarks for Delhi to participate in IAU 50-kilometer World Championships. 5-member team bid farewell at the airport. That's it for this edition of NTV World Primetime News. Do join us through our social media and get the latest updates from our official website, nepaltelevision.com. I am April Singh Lama. Thank you for staying with us. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Welcome to the studios of NTV World in Kathmandu. Public Service Broadcasting PSB Nepal's new initiative to make Nepal more visible and audible to the global audience. Welcome on board.
This is NTV World, facts that speak, insights that matter.
Telling the stories of a changing planet. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Exploring the heartbeat of Nepali creativity. This is NTV World.
The power of story shaped by technology. NTV World.
Unearthing Nepal's hidden heritage. Discovering the timeless Nepal. Telling stories that endure across centuries. Where culture breathes, stories bloom. When the world moves, we make a sense of it. NTV World.
Taste of Nepal. Every recipe, every flavor tells the story.
Journalism in the digital age. Fast, focused, verified.
Stories hold power. Stories reflecting life. Stories of the hinterlands. Reporting for NTV World.
This is NTV World. Welcome to News Hour.
This is NTV World. Welcome to Primetime News.
One story at a time.
Crossing borders, connecting voices, where Nepal meets the world in dialogue. This is NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Voices that connect Nepal to the world, bringing perspective, region and relevance to every story. NTV World, Nepal's perspective to the world.
Stand by. Mic is on.
3, 2, 1, cue.
We are NTV World.
Countries around the world are rolling out emergency measures as tensions in the Middle East begin to strain global fuel supplies. Disruptions to tanker traffic through the Hormuz Trail have pushed oil prices higher, forcing some governments to ration fuel, shorten work weeks and search for alternative supplies. At the same time, new trade data, corporate earnings and shifting consumer trends are offering a broader picture of how the global economy is navigating uncertainty. Hello, I'm Siksha Bhattrai and this is World Business Weekly. Here's a look at some of the business stories from around the world. Countries across parts of Asia and Africa are introducing emergency measures to cope with rising fuel costs and possible shortages. The pressure comes as disruptions to tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz push global oil prices higher and tighten supply for energy importing economies. Governments across Asia and beyond are rolling out a range of adaptive measures to contain the impact of surging oil prices triggered by conflict in the Middle East. The countries predominantly importing crude oil from the Gulf regions are announcing measures to fuel efficiency. The crisis has been intensified by disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow but vital shipping corridor through which roughly a fifth of the world's crude oil passes. Concerns over tanker traffic in the region have pushed crude prices over $100 a barrel, forcing governments to act quickly to stabilize domestic fuel markets. In South Asia's Bangladesh, which imports about 95% of its oil and gas from the Gulf, authorities have introduced fuel rationing and deployed security forces to major depots and filling stations. Schools have been closed, classes moved online, and decorative light displays cancelled in an effort to conserve energy. Neighbouring Pakistan has unveiled sweeping fuel efficiency measures after raising fuel prices by around 20%. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced that the government offices except banks will move to a 4-day work week with half of public employees working from home to reduce fuel consumption. Fuel allowances for official vehicles have also been cut and overseas travel by officials restricted. Amid the scarcity, India seems relatively untouched as it imports almost half of its crude oil from Russia and remains resolute despite US President Donald Trump's sanctions. India has begun sending around 5,000 metric tons of diesel to Bangladesh through the Bangladesh-India Friendship Pipeline, strengthening cross-border energy cooperation as markets remain volatile. Elsewhere in Southeast Asia, in the Philippines, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has ordered a 4-day government work week to reduce fuel consumption. Authorities have also warned against hoarding and are monitoring petrol stations as prices rise. Vietnam is also exploring policy changes to cushion consumers, including plans to scrap tariffs on fuel imports and remove duties on several petroleum products to help stabilize supply. In Myanmar, the military government has introduced strict conservation measures, ordering private vehicles off the roads on alternating days based on license plate numbers to preserve limited fuel stocks. In China, the authorities raised the largest retail fuel price in 4 years. Petrol and diesel ceiling prices rose nationwide, adding roughly $3.75 to a 50-liter tank. Refineries are being used to prioritize domestic supply to stabilize the market and ensure sufficient fuel for consumers. Whereas in Hong Kong, airlines are beginning to pass on rising costs to travelers. Hong Kong Airlines has announced higher passenger fuel surcharges on both the long-haul and regional flights as aviation fuel prices climb. Outside Asia, some countries are focusing on securing supply. In Nigeria, the Dangote mega refinery has pledged to prioritize the domestic market to prevent fuel shortages and limit the impact of rising global prices. With tensions in the Middle East continuing to unsettle global oil markets, governments across several regions are racing to conserve fuel, stabilize prices, and protect their economies from a widening energy shock. Meanwhile, new trade data is offering a different signal from Asia. Exports from China surged in the first 2 months of the year despite tariff tensions with the United States, supported by strong demand for electronics and manufactured goods.
China's exports surged in the first 2 months of this year despite trade tensions with the US. Official figures show export jumped by more than 20% in January and February, which is almost 3 times the rate predicted by economists. It puts the country on track to top the record-breaking annual trade surplus it saw in 2025. The announcement comes as US President Donald Trump is expected to visit China in early April to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. The world's second-largest economy is heavily reliant on exports as it faces a number of issues including weak consumer spending, a shrinking population, and a property market crisis.
Elsewhere in Asia, India has reached a significant economic milestone. The country has overtaken Japan to become the world's 4th largest economy, although analysts say challenges such as employment and income inequality remain.
India overtook Japan to become the world's 4th largest economy, marking a major milestone in the country's rapid economic expansion. However, the benefits of growth remain uneven, with millions of people still struggling to secure stable and well-paid jobs. The rise reflects years of strong economic performance driven by domestic consumption, infrastructure investment, and a growing services sector. Government officials have highlighted the milestone as evidence of the country's increasing global economic influence. Despite the achievement, concerns remain about whether the growth is translating into improved living standards across the country. country, particularly in rural areas. While India's economy continues to expand rapidly, challenges such as unemployment, income inequality, and rural development must be addressed to ensure the gains from growth are more widely shared.
Also in South Asia, disruptions are affecting the region's manufacturing supply chains. Garment shipments from Bangladesh and India are strained after flight cancellations through Gulf transit hubs, affecting retailers, including the Inditex.
Garment shipments for major retailers, including Zara owner Inditex, are stranded at airports in Bangladesh and India, as Middle East conflict has forced airlines such as Emirates and Qatar Airways to cancel flights. South Asia is a major clothing manufacturing hub, supplying global fast fashion brands with items such as t-shirts, dresses, and jeans. Shovon Islam, managing director of Sparrow Group, said several of his company's consignments are stuck at Dhaka airport. The shipments were scheduled to reach the United Kingdom via Dubai, but the suspension of operations there has created significant logistical challenges. Much of South Asia depends on Gulf carriers to transport air cargo, with more than half of Bangladesh's shipments and about 41% of India's passing through the Gulf hubs.
In the energy sector, corporate results are reflecting uncertainty in global oil markets. Oil giant Saudi Aramco reported a decline in annual profit, citing higher global supply and economic headwinds.
Saudi Aramco on Tuesday reported a 12.1% decline in net income for 2025, citing higher global oil supply, economic uncertainty, and the impact of trade measures such as U.S. tariffs that weighed on revenues. The state-owned oil giant said the downturn reflects challenging conditions in global energy markets, where increased production and slower economic growth have pressured crude prices and profit margins across the industry. The company also manages significant production sites such as the Ceiba oil field in the Rub al Khali Desert and one of the world's largest oil export terminals and refineries in Ras Tanura. Despite the drop in annual profit, the company said it remains focused on maintaining production capacity and investing in energy infrastructure to meet global demand.
In another development involving natural resources, Washington has taken a step involving Venezuela's mining sector. The United States issued a license allowing transactions with the state-owned gold mining company Minerven, while restricting contracts with companies linked to several geopolitical rivals.
The United States on Friday issued a license allowing transactions with Venezuela's state-owned gold mining company Minerven, signaling the Trump administration's intention to expand its influence over the country's natural resources. The authorization followed a visit by U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum to Venezuela, where he met acting President Delcy Rodriguez and representatives from more than 24 U.S. mining and mineral firms, many of which previously operated in the country. Burgum said Venezuelan authorities had provided security assurances to companies considering investment in mineral-rich regions that have long been controlled by guerrilla groups, gangs, and other illegal actors. The license also prohibits individuals and companies from Russia, Iran, North Korea, and Cuba from entering into contracts with Minerven.
Meanwhile, in Asia, countries are strengthening economic cooperation. Singapore and South Korea have agreed to upgrade their free trade agreement, expanding collaboration in digital trade, artificial intelligence, and supply chains.
Singapore and South Korea have agreed to upgrade their existing free trade agreement, expanding cooperation in areas including supply chain resilience, trade facilitation, and aviation maintenance, repair, and overhaul. The agreement was among 6 deals exchanged during the state visit of South Korean President Lee Jae-myung to Singapore at the invitation of President Tharman Shanmugaratnam. During talks with Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, both sides agreed to explore deeper cooperation in artificial intelligence, digital policy, and cybersecurity. The leaders said the upgrade of the Korea-Singapore Free Trade Agreement, which entered into force 20 years ago, would ensure it remains relevant amid changes in the global trading environment, including the growing focus on digital trade and green transition efforts. Additional agreements include joint research and talent exchanges in advanced manufacturing and other high-value technology sectors, as well as collaboration in studying the potential of nuclear energy. The visit also highlighted expanding people-to-people ties following the elevation of bilateral relations to a strategic partnership last year.
In the technology sector, executive compensation is drawing attention. The chief executive of Alphabet Inc., Sundar Pichai, could earn up to $692 million under a new compensation package tied largely to company stock performance.
The CEO of Google and its parent company Alphabet could earn up to $692 million over the next 3 years under a new compensation plan published Friday by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The deal would make Sundar Pichai, who has been chief executive of Google since 2015 and of Alphabet since 2019, one of the highest paid CEOs in the world. Under the plan, Pichai's 3-year salary of $6 million or $2 million per year would remain unchanged. The remainder of his compensation would be paid in the form of Alphabet stock as well as shares in 2 subsidiaries, the autonomous vehicle company Waymo and the drone delivery service Wing. The SEC filing suggested Pichai could receive about $130 million from Waymo and $45 million from Wing. The allocation will depend on the performance of the shares and for Alphabet on the amount of dividends paid.
At the consumer level in China, spending patterns are also shifting. Shoppers in Shanghai are increasingly turning to second-hand stores and resale platforms as slower wage growth and the property downturn weigh on household spending.
Budget-conscious shoppers in Shanghai are increasingly turning to second-hand stores as slower wage growth and a prolonged property crisis weigh on household spending. Shops such as Green Cycle, located in a shopping mall basement, sell used clothing and household goods at significantly reduced prices, reflecting a broader shift in consumer behavior in the world's second-largest economy. Online resale platforms including Shanyu and Zhuanzhuan have also expanded rapidly, with Shanyu operating physical outlets across China. The trend comes as Chinese leaders gather in Beijing for the annual 2 sessions policy meetings, where measures to boost domestic consumption are expected to be discussed. Despite record domestic travel during the recent Lunar New Year holiday, per capita tourism spending remained below pre-pandemic levels, highlighting continued caution among consumers.
And in West Africa, cocoa farmers say they are facing growing financial pressure. Producers in Ghana and Ivory Coast report falling prices and delayed payments despite strong global demand for chocolate.
Cocoa farmers in West Africa are facing growing financial hardship despite the sharp rise in global chocolate prices over the past year, as falling cocoa prices and payment delays leave many producers without income. In Ghana and Ivory Coast, which together produce the majority of the world's cocoa, farmers say they have not been paid for months after local buying companies struggle to sell their crops on the international market. The crisis follows a sharp surge in global cocoa prices in 2024, driven by poor harvests and supply shortages. However, prices have since fallen significantly as global production improved and demand weakened. Chocolate manufacturers have also reduced cocoa use and shrunk product sizes after high ingredient costs.
Those were some of the business developments reported from around the world this week. From energy markets to trade, corporate strategy and consumer trends, the stories reflect the different forces shaping the global economy. For World Business Weekly on NTV World, I am Siksha Bhattrai. Thank you for watching.
स्वागत छ लुक्लामा तपाईहरुलाई राम्रोसँग आउनुभयो के प्लेनमा डरहरु लाग्नु भएन प्लेन भित्तैमा ठोकेला जस्तो हुन्छ यहाँ त
At an altitude of 2,860 meters, Lukla is the starting point of arguably one of the best trekking routes in the world, up to the Mount Everest base camp, finishing above 5,400 meters. Ram is one of hundreds of seasonal porters in the route.
अब यो त मान्छेलाई पनि यस्तै हो सजिलो त सर त्यो किनभने हिलो हुँदैन बेस क्याम्प जाँदा अब क्याम्पको 1000 रुपैयाँ हुन्छ डबल बारी बोकेर अब 2-3 क्याम्प जति हिँडिन्छ त्यतिखेर चाहिँ 5000 जति बस्छ
The route is popular, in fact crowded. This is only for the 2 months of April and May, and so is the profession of Ram a seasonal affair.
अब कुनै खेर पाइन्छ कुनै खेर पाइँदैन मान्छे यतिकै हुन्छ त अब कुनै खेर त अब 4-5 दिन यतिकै बसेकै बजारतिर आयो घुम्यो यतिकै फेरि कोठामा फर्केर आयो अब बाकी खाना खादै बस्यो त्यस्तै हो सर विदेश जाउँ त अब लाग्छ जानुलाई पनि फेरि अलिक गाह्रै छ पैसा चाहिन्छ अब पैसा छैन त्यो पेशामा पढाइ चाहिँ पुरुषहरु नै हुन्छ महिलाहरु पनि आधी उधी हुन्छ सर बिहानदेखि कहिले अब घाम लागिरहन्छ एकछिनमा यस्तो बादल आइहाल्छ डुममा भइहाल्छ यहाँको मौसम यस्तै हो सर पढेको भए त बाँकी अब सानो तिनो जबहरु हुन्थ्यो कि
Trekkers pass through nearly 6-7 small hamlets along the Lukla-Namche section of the route.
यहाँ सबै घरमा बिजुली पानीको राम्रो व्यवस्था छ सर
The locals do not have infrastructures or might have resected roads, but they have embraced development.
नाम्चे लुक्ला सबै बाटोभरि नै फोहोर राख्ने बाटो राखिदिनु भएको छ
The topography is inhospitable, but the people are friendly.
यहाँ हरेक गाउँको आफ्नै हाइड्रो बिजुली निकाल्ने पावर छ
Solar panels give much needed warm water to survive the cold. No wonder everything comes at a cost here, charging a cell phone or getting a Wi-Fi connection.
साह्रै दुःख पाइयो मम्मी सानैमा बित्यो अनि पढ्नै पाएन यस्तो दुःख गर्नु परेछ अब छोराछोरीलाई चाहिँ अब यस्तो दुःख गरेर भए पनि पढाउँछु अङ्ग्रेजी बोल्ने भए त अब कति अब खैराहरू भेट्छन् हिजो पनि 4 जना भेटे थियो फाल्टो ग्रुप अब अङ्ग्रेजी बोल्न जानिदैन त्यही भएर पठाइदियो ल अब यहाँ चाहिँ खाना खाने ठाउँ हो यहाँ खाना खानु पर्यो
हजुर सबभन्दा धेरै थुक्पा नै हो किनभने अरू खाजा पनि जान्छ नि त जानु त बनायो भने जान्छ तर त्यो सकिहालेन भने फेरि त्यो बिग्रिन्छ के अमिलो
Food is no more cooked in firewood like in the past, despite LP gas cylinders arriving either on humans' back or the beast of burdens. Our first day trek concludes at Phakding, a small hamlet at an altitude of 2,610 meters. Almost all trekkers lodge here on the first day to acclimatize themselves for higher elevations. The place has amenities for travelers at par with an urban town, except roads and infrastructures.
यहाँ यो फलामको चिम्नी नभएको त गरै हुँदैन सर यहाँ त फलामको चिम्नी भएन भने त जाडले मरिहाल्छ
As the dawn breaks, Ram emerges from his overnight elopement for lodging.
अब जाने होला सर उकालो यो अलिक सपना बिग्रियो अनि त्यति राम्रो सुतेन सपनामा त खै कस्तो अचम्मक सपना देख्यो सपनामा चाहिँ बुढी चाहिँ अर्कैसँग गएको देखेको खै के कुरामा चाहिँ डिस्केस भएको जस्तो भयो अनि त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ कपडा सबै प्याक गरेर हिँडेको सपना देख्यो के गर्न सकिएन खै कहिले के गर्ने हो मान्छे बुढी राम्रो छ सपना चाहिँ त्यस्तो देख्यो कस्तो अचम्म लाग्यो बुढी फेरि मभन्दा ठुलो छ कि मभन्दा त राम्रै पनि छ ठुलो पनि छ त्यस्तो सपना देख्दा चाहिँ कुनै खेर चाहिँ अब डर पनि लाग्छ क्या बा पछि अब छोडेर हिँडिने हो कि आफूसँग केही नभएपछि त होइन बा अब हिँडिने हो कि जस्तो पनि लाग्छ यो सागो हो यो सागो चाहिँ काठको बनाएको यो बर्खामा ठुलो पानी आउँछ ठुलो खोला हुँदाखेरि त बगाएर लगिहाल्छ फेरि बनाउँछ यो चाहिँ पारी घाँस दाउराको लागि बनाउँछ
The Kumbh region has more than a dozen suspension and concrete bridges to safely cross the Dudh Kosi, meaning Milk White Kosi and its tributaries. As we continue our steep climb towards Namche Bazaar, we pass through freshly felled pine trees.
यो चाहिँ घरको लागि काठ काटेको हो यो घरको काठ काट्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो निस्केको दाउरा हो सर यो दाउरा अब सधैँभरि फुल्दैन कुनै बेला फुल्दाखेरि चाहिँ काट्ने हो
Only permitted numbers are cut every year, while the locals do not forget to grow pine saplings in their backyard to replace the cut ones. This is the entry point of Sagarmatha National Park, a buffer zone guarded by Nepal Army. The small hamlet of around 200 houses is no less than a modern town as we venture around the next morning with Ram. We not only discover Ram's free-of-cost night laws, but also a secret tavern where porters gather to gamble.
टुरिस्ट आएन भने त अब यहाँ त अब गाह्रो छ नि सर अब आलु मात्रै फलाएर अब के खानु यहाँ त्यो पनि अब आलु धेर फल्दैन कम फल्छ टुरिस्ट आएन भने त धेरै गाह्रो छ सर अब छनु त छ कि अझ यो भन्दा राम्रो यो भन्दा नि अब राम्रो अब घरहरू बनाओस् राम्रो सरसफाइ होस् अब राम्रो सुविधा होस् न त्यहाँदेखि चाहिँ आउँछ यहाँ त अब त्यस्तो मोटरहरू आयो भने त फेरि हामीलाई गाह्रो भइहाल्छ नि सर अब हामी फेरि अब हामी पोटरहरू फेरि त्यतिकै हुन्छ बेरोजगार हुन्छ अब हाम्रो त अब खै जिन्दगी त अब यस्तोले त अब गाह्रै हो तर अब के गर्नु त सर अब खासै अब केही अब गर्ने बाटै छैन हाम्रो अब यही नै हो हाम्रो त
A phone call from Lukla upsets us more than Ram as he misses a much better opportunity to accompany trekkers to the base camp. The weather remains unfavorable as we fail to catch a glimpse of the Mount Everest. With a bit of dejection for not being able to see the roof of the world, we start our journey back to Lukla. On the way, Ram gives us a good news. He got another lucrative trip.
अब चाहिँ अलिक चाँडो जानु पर्ला हो सर अब आजै म फेरि फर्केर नाम्ची पुग्नु पर्ने छ
Back at Lukla, Ram prepares himself for the 14-day trip to the base camp with high hopes for making decent earning. It's time to part now, as Ram bids us goodbye in a haste in Lukla to make his dream come true. A roof for his wife and education for his little princess.
The political landscape of Nepal has just undergone a seismic shift. March 5 elections have delivered a historic mandate for the country. Rashtriya Swatantra Party secured a staggering supermajority, completely redefining the balance of power and sweeping aside traditional vanguards. Meanwhile, grassroots movements like newly formed Shram Sanskriti Party are also making their national debut. To help us evaluate what it means for the future of our republic, we are joined today by Pranav Kharel, who is a prominent sociologist and a sharp political analyst. He is known for his deep reading of Nepal's democratic transitions. Welcome to NTV World Inside. It's very good to have you here.
Thank you, Saraji.
We've been through a vacuum of a period, and it was, if you agree, a testing period for the country as well. But the Sushila Karki-led government has delivered what they promised, an election which was largely free and fair, I believe. How big of a success would you say it was?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me. I agree with you. In the aftermath of the September protest last year, where what we saw, we collectively as a nation had thought that we are going off guard. But Sushila Karki-led government, for a better reason, has made sure that we are back on track by holding elections on time. And the mandate that that has come is, if you compare it historically, this is the second time any party has won a close to two-thirds majority, and which is a super majority. So people have spoken out. So it's now for the parties to deliver, especially the Rashtriya Swatantra Party.
The result that RSP was able to garner, it's almost two-thirds, it's a super majority. I think the last time we saw this kind of majority was in 1959 elections. Do you think the party itself had calculated this massive success, or do you think it's just a byproduct of the frustration among the public?
I think partly they had calculated, and partly they were also taken by surprise. Partly they had calculated in the sense that if you reflect back on the election strategies of RSP, they were carefully articulating their politics. For example, the way they decided to field Balendra Shah in Tarai, that sent a strong message. Similarly, they were also able to cash on the grievance, but the grievance exists everywhere. Anti-incumbency is always there in any society. How do you articulate that grievance, and how do you convert that grievance into a political victory is a strategy that you have to pay attention to, which RSP has been able to do very well. But they were also, I think, taken a bit by surprise, I think, because they were definitely looking for a majority, but I'm not quite sure about the super majority.
Many old guards have gone down in this election. Do you think this is a permanent dismantling of the old system?
The parties, Nepali Congress, UML, and for the last 20 years, the Maoists, have been in the driving seat for a long period of time. And one of the challenging issues of Nepali politics has been the politicization of the public life. In fact, by this I mean the partification of the public life. So every aspect of the public life was partified. You know, if you are not a member of a political party, you could not get an opportunity to participate meaningfully in civil life. I mean, that was very frustrating, and that was also demeaning on the part for the citizens, because it reeked like a modern day feudalism. So, and in many ways, our traditional parties have modeled themselves around the feudal structures. But there was a huge disconnect between what we call the Gen Zs and a little older people than Gen Zs, because economically, culturally, and even to an extent politically, there was a lot of autonomy on the part of the citizen from the state-led processes. You know, state was doing its work, but then the citizens had already sort of crafted their own space or autonomous space in all these spheres that I just mentioned. So there was a disconnect, and the disconnect, to add to that disconnect, was the fact that the mode of communication, if you will, had changed. You know, traditionally the mode of communication was through, you know, you would organize rallies and you would do that. Now in this tech savvy era, you were communicating through new medias. So the mode of communication had changed, the mode of messaging had changed, the message itself had changed, which many leaders in the traditional parties failed to realize. As a result, there was a huge disconnect, and then we see this. Second, to borrow a phrase as a Nepali political scientist had put in, this contest was also a contest between half the population, half each, because if you divide the 3 crore population into 1 crore 50 lakhs, 1 crore 50 lakhs, so half of them were partified at a theoretical level, if not at an empirical level, we could say that, and the other half was not. So this division was quite open, and this mandate, which you call the dismantling, which I don't believe is the dismantling, is a result of this. So as for the dismantling, the traditional party structures will now not work, because these parties have emerged in a very different global political context. These older traditional parties were a result of a Cold War era politics, where ideology of a particular variety sort of guided them. But today, such kind of working doesn't help, because times have changed. We have new economic, political and cultural situation at play, which these parties have not been able to, as I pointed out earlier, not been able to address. Therefore, we see this situation.
Mm-hmm. How long do you think can a government survive purely on service delivery and technocracy without taking clear ideological stances, for instance, for federalism or secularism and constitutional reform?
The population has grown weary of the ideological rhetoric, because there is limited delivery. I'm not saying the previous governments did not deliver. They did. But that delivery was limited. That delivery was conditional. And that delivery was, by conditional I mean the parties were then using that delivery as a succor to secure vote every time they went. For instance, they would say, okay, it is our party which has built this road, highway or road or connectivity or hospital, therefore you should vote our candidate every time. So that kind of as I indicated earlier, that kind of a feudal mentality would no longer help. Therefore, in the short run, RSP will find success if they deliver on the front of governance, as their manifesto sort of indicates that they want to go for example, paperless governance model, or that is less of a bureaucratic model. So if they deliver on those fronts and some of the other fronts that they have promised, in the short run, that will help them. But in the longer run, if you claim yourself to be a political party, there has to be a holding force. So as I indicated earlier, Nepali Congress, UML, Maoist, all are product of a time where they were politically socialized in an environment which was reflective of the developments of the 60s and the 70s. That is the industrial capitalism that was taking place in the West. So that industrial capitalism brought to fore the debate between socialism and capitalism. Within socialism, what kind of socialism would you take, and what the other form of socialism would be communism. So that kind of an ideological debate was there, and the parties sort of structured themselves along those lines, and the leaders were also politically socialized in that light. So if you take that very capitalism which is still at play, its logics have changed today. Some 40, 45 years, 50 years down the line, they have changed. Today, it is not the traditional industrial capitalism that is at play. Today, we have big tech giants, like Meta or Twitter or other meta tech giants, which today control the economy and to an extent politics. So, and we also have a significant section of the population today that we call Gen Z, which is also a tech netizen, which grew up, which was born with technology, in a very technologically invasive environment. So, how has the society, politics, culture shaped by that process is reflected in our politics. Therefore, I said our old guards are not able to sort of take cognizance of that shift. Some leaders may have taken note of it and tried to adopt, but at a general level, the old guards failed to adopt. Therefore, in the changed political environment, cultural and economic environment, the traditional party system will not work. Having said this, I do not mean to say there is no ideology at play. Technology itself produces its own ideology. For example, there is now a different kind of echo chamber that is generated in social media, which was also reflected in the way people voted this time around. So if you are building your political opinion based on what you see on TikTok or Insta, so that is definitely an ideological framing, because then you are framing the world view in a particular perspective. Therefore, I think ideology has not died out, but the old forms of ideology have changed and they have taken a new shape.
This election also showed the emergence of a really relatively new party led by Harka Sampang, which has the philosophy of labor first. How do you interpret the mood among the voters at the grassroots?
I, for one, cannot comment absolutely on Harkaji's rise, because I have looked at it from a very distance. But two things are very clear. One, Harka Sampang could, and his party could do very well in the traditional Janjati constituency. His articulation of labor first is also his idea of a very ethnocentric approach, very nationalist approach to indigeneity, being that mato or soil, I'm indigenous to soil, and you should value labor to the soil. It's a very indigenizing idea that he's floating. If we go by his past statements in public, he's also called for military conscription and all that kind of a thing. So some electorate sort of have resonated with what Harkaji has to say, and they have given his mandate. We will also have to understand Harkaji's rise in the context where the eastern hills have, for the last 25 years or so, seen a massive growth of ethnic parties, be that Mongol National Organization or even a recent developments out there. So for the last 35, 40 years. So I am reading Harkaji's rise in that context. We are yet to see, is it a continuation of that kind of an identity politics articulation in a different manner, or is it altogether a different ballgame?
Considering that several prominent parties also did not garner as many or reach threshold, in fact, to be acknowledged as a national party, do you think this is solely just a constituency thing?
No, we'll have to again put things in perspective. This election is taking place in the aftermath of the Gen Z protest. So I go back to that example that I use. The national population has always been demarcating the whole politics between people who are part of the party system, traditional party system, and who are outside of it. So, and they have well articulated understanding that people who are part of the party system have benefited disproportionately. So they should be done away with. In that context, we see that the traditional parties have been swept away for the time being. And we see the rise of new parties, including that of Harkazi's. Harkazi also emerged as an independent candidate in mayoral election. So we'll have to understand that our national articulation or national imagination is based on certain deliveries at certain local levels. People who have delivered at local levels to whatever that delivery may mean to that respective population or the electorate, they have delivered. For example, Balen is considered to have delivered in Kathmandu. Harkazi delivered in Dharan. He brought in the drinking water. He fixed the drinking water problem. Balen is credited with fixing the garbage management issue or other issues. So all these issues, because we are a democracy with low expectation. We are not a democracy with high expectation. So even small gestures and small acts sort of garner a lot of trust among the population. So we will have to see their rise also in that context. So their elevation, so it was articulated in such a way that if they can deliver at the local level at this point, so what if they get a chance at the national level? So I think that sort of message resonated well with the population.
Over the course of time, of course, you have in fact observed a lot of transitions in our country. What would you say, what kind of democracy would you say would be best fit for Nepal?
For the last 75 years, Nepal has wrestled with one or other forms of democracy. Even Panchayat called itself a democracy. And the modernization process that it undertook also sort of brought in changes that later on proved very vital for Nepali society. But at least for the last 40 years, we've practiced kind of a democracy which is largely a Westministerial model. And we said that the national representatives would legislate and bring in laws and usher in development. That model seems to have had partial success, where a large part of the electorate feels that a lot of their issues are to be settled at the lower level or at the, let's say, at the local level. And at the national level, the kind of debates that often take place do not resonate. So this is at a very rhetorical level. But at an empirical level, if you look at the working of the democracy, by and large, I would not say we were off track. By and large, the framework was okay, but it had its own share of problem. And not correcting that share of problem resulted in this. So we'll have to understand. For example, to answer your question, I will use an example. Nepal, I believe, currently has three forms of victims, if you will. The first victim is a victim of the conflict, armed conflict. Second is the victim of the financial frauds. Many financial frauds, including meter, we have meter byads or loan sharks. And then third, we have the victims of what we call the natural disasters. State's response to all three set is problematic, and their wounds they have been grieving for a long time. So they have open wounds, if you will. So not being able to address these victims sort of means you are sitting on a cake powder, and it could explode. It did explode. We'll have to understand that before the Gen Z protest, there were several other rounds of protest, including against the loan sharks. And time and again there has been rallying by the victims of the natural disaster. And of course, armed conflict victims are always there. So we will also have to put, so if the democracy is not able to address the victims, and if our democracy only creates victims, so that's going to be a problem. Second, one of the biggest challenges of our democracy has been, it's a neoliberal variety of democracy, where the economic opportunities have not been created enough. So that has created another set of problems. You have a very young population which is very restless, globally connected, hyper-connected rather, but does not have enough, you know. So, in terms of economic opportunities, therefore, we have to think about a democracy which balances opportunities with social justice. So, if we cannot strike a balance between the two, I mean, any form of democracy will not work. I don't think so. We will have the kind of stability we are looking for.
Your research has highlighted a youth demand for meritocracy. What structural changes do you think is needed in the state apparatus to finally replace the culture of nepotism and avoid brain drain?
You know, every society has nepotism. You can take nepotism. There are different ways in which nepotism sort of manifests. In our part of the world, let's say in South Asia, nepotism manifests a little more prominently, you know, as anthropologist Dorvadru Vista often used to call what he called the Afnomansi culture. So, but then in the West also we have some form of nepotism. We have the culture of recommendation. So, you know, who recommends you and who recommends whom sort of lands you jobs and opportunities. So, having said that, nepotism sort of bars people, deserving candidates from coming in. But and meritocracy is one of the expected aspects of democracy. But we will also have to pay very close attention to the other aspect. We are talking about meritocracy in a society which is historically unequal. So we have to balance the idea of meritocracy with the question of inclusion. So meritocracy for whom? For example, if you are coming from a community that has been traditionally advantaged, you are already a beneficiary of the structural benefits of structural dividends that existed. So, as against someone who may be a first in his family or a community to receive university education and then get a job. So, if there is this competition between these two kind of individuals, so meritocracy alone cannot be the defining feature. So, of course, meritocracy is very important. People with adequate expertise should get opportunity, but then we will also have to consider our historical context where social exclusion was pervasive. So, we will also have to balance our meritocracy with inclusion. Only then we can sort of, but this again creates its own state of tension. So, just to go back to your earlier question, what kind of democracy we would want, and this democracy would, so our democracy would be a little messy. I see a lot of mess in the coming days because these questions will be asked again. You know, for now, people are brushing aside these questions. I don't think so. These questions will be brushed aside. I see these questions coming out very prominently.
Considering the current number at the parliament, how strong of a role do you think the opposition parties are going to play at the parliament? And do you think there's a risk of tyranny of majority?
See, democracy produces its own contradictions, as does the politics. But tyranny of majority, I do not want to comment on it as yet, because we have not seen how RSP on its own would function. I mean, we have seen RSP function as part of a government. It was part of a coalition. So coalition has its own compulsions. So I would give that benefit of doubt to RSP. But on the role of the opposition, I see we'll have to consider this. In our political culture, we do not generally we have a working relationship among politicians. Up until now, we've seen that, and I hope this will continue. If it doesn't, then situation will change, because Parliament is of course about numbers, and number is against the opposition. So, for example, the intent of RSP will be clear when it comes to dividing the parliamentary committees. For example, Public Accounts Committee is generally headed by a leader of the opposition party. The idea is that that's the committee where a lot of national accounting questions are asked. So, and national accounting money is controlled by the treasury, is controlled by the government. Therefore, the opposition should be on the public accounts committee. If they do not give that position to the opposition, let's say Nepali Congress, then we can question their intent. If they do, then we can say that, okay, they seem to be abiding by the general democratic parliamentary principles that are set. So, as I said, we'll have to wait and watch before jumping our guns.
Considering all the developments around the world, this period seems like intense when we look at the geopolitical landscape. How do you see the next government balancing diplomacy, especially with our neighboring giants?
See, that's a very interesting question. I, for one, do not believe in balancing act. And the balancing act is very difficult. Why I am saying this is we'll have to put it into perspective. The balancing act that many of our people talk about of the Nepali states in the past is largely again a Cold War era politics that we will have to consider. Both our neighbors were not very economically vibrant. In comparison to us, of course, they were very vibrant, but at a global scale, they were not very vibrant. So what the regime of the day did was they used the West, they used the West and Soviet Union to leverage against India and China. But today things are very different. Today our two neighbors are the global economic engines. China is the global factory. India similarly is a very major economy. So if we want to engage, rather than balance, I would use the term engage. If we want to engage with them, we will have to offer a meaningful economic blueprint to our two neighbors and to the extended neighbor, the United States. So we cannot leave out the United States when we consider the two, because for the last 80 years, it is the relationship between the three that has sort of governed South Asia and has affected Nepal too. So we cannot sort of rule out. So we will have to offer a meaningful economic blueprint, which of course the RSP manifesto sort of, if you go by the manifesto, they indicate that. Second, when we talk about how do we engage with our neighbors and on the broader foreign policy front, we will also have to pay attention to the diaspora. Today, comparison to the 60s and the 70s, we have a significant diaspora both in the Gulf and in the West, and increasingly spread across other parts of the world. So they too will have a significant role to play. So when we want to, let's say you want to engage with China, and here RSP is promising that once a Nepali, always a Nepali. That is what their manifesto says. They want to bring in the overseas Nepalese, NRN Nepalese, and contribute and make sure that their skills are used, and in return they are also treated at national par. So we have a global powerhouse called China, which is a global manufacturer. So how would you use the skills that the NRNs have in order to bridge the gap? We need a lot of technology transfer. Our need is technology transfer. So our foreign policy should be geared in that direction. The old rhetorics, I don't think so is going to use. I mean, of course, there are certain traditional concerns. China has its own traditional concerns. India has its own traditional concerns. But we will also have to consider the fact that both India and China have also changed in these many years. And for instance, China's part that is attached to us or close to us has a significantly lower population but a vast territory. Similarly, on the southern side, the India's population, the area that is attached to us has a significant population, but in terms of territory, they are not a very sizable territory. So what does this mean? So what does being close to Uttar Pradesh and Bihar mean in terms of economy, in terms of connectivity? So, and it's not that in the last 35 years nothing have happened. Infrastructure connectivity has been worked out, and we have now rails coming up to the Indian borders. And on the Chinese front, I think we need more air connectivity rather than the land connectivity. We need more air connectivity, and there is a lot of talk of business being done. We do a lot of our trade through India, and we are also trying to increase our trade through China. So it's the economy that we'll have to play out well, because if we don't do that, then mere rhetorics, I don't think so, are going to help us.
Ideally, the common goal for countries is to grow together.
Right.
Nepal government has partnered with many countries in economic front or infrastructure front as well. In the past, we've signed many programs that have been controversial. There are also programs that are in the cards, in the table, in discussions that have concerned the general public. What do you think of it?
I think you are hinting at MCC and other agreements. In principle, I think the way we engage, let's say MCC, our foreign policy, if you want to view that from a foreign policy perspective, Nepali state's foreign policy has always been regime-centric. You know, during the Panchayat, Americans were the biggest backers of the Panchayat. So the American modernization sort of played out in Nepal very well, and also benefited the elite, and sort of that the effects of that modernization process trickled down to the society. Similarly, when it comes to MCC, I think at the first look, MCC should not be a problem because it's a project that talks about connectivity. But I am personally concerned about the money. The money Nepali state itself can generate. If it is about generating electricity, I think we are in a position to generate the amount that MCC has promised. But the fact is that the Americans have had a traditional hold over the Nepali political structure for a long period of time, as a result of which they were able to sort of get hold onto the energy sector. I for one have always stood against the MCC personally, at a personal level, because I believe it's for the South Asians to decide their energy policy. It's not for the Americans or the others. We, of course, can seek help in terms of technology transfer, which I have been emphasizing quite a lot, because then the energy policy and the energy, because if you are able to control the energy, for example, then you are able to control many things. Having said that, this is my personal opinion. I don't think so. This is how the people in Singhadarbar were thinking and are going to think, because they think that engaging with America at a more deeper level is more beneficial to the country, which makes sense to the extent that a large section of our diaspora lives in the United States and the West. But therefore, there is a paradox. The society pushes you to engage more with the West, because a large section of the society is there. But then traditionally state, if you think from the perspective of the state wants to have its autonomy. So more engagement with more powerful countries means your autonomy to work, given your institutional capacity, will be limited. So I think there is a paradox there. And on the Chinese front, I think it's the same story. I mean, Chinese have come here with their own development model. They want to expand, which is understandable. But again, we should take things with a pinch of salt and with a lot of caution, because we'll have to see how much institutional capacity we have to sort of engage in the BRI framework that China has put forward, because there are other components to BRI, and connectivity is just one. So how comprehensive are we going to be in our interaction? It's for the people in Singhadarbar to decide.
So the fear of losing autonomy maybe is, for now, wait and watch.
There are two things. If you want to interact in in an economy, in a world system that is highly interconnected, then definitely you are going to lose your autonomy, as economist Danny Roderick puts it, that if you are looking for more of a connectivity, then the states should not think more about their autonomy, because autonomy will be compromised. But if you want autonomy, I mean, as I said, I'm just putting in the picture for you. If you want autonomy, then you engage less. But if you want connectivity, you want more interaction, then you compromise on your autonomy. So it is all it's all for you to choose.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think we are capable enough to maintain that autonomy ourselves?
As of now, the records of the last 2 decades are not very optimistic. We tend to swing a lot. Our center has shaken. Our center was never very strong, but it is shaken. That's because we have not put a lot of emphasis on our economic growth. Today's interaction primarily rests on economic interaction. And it's the economy, it's not the ideology. So ideology has taken a new shape, as I've been trying to point out time and again. It has taken a new shape. So if we understand these complexities and nuances and work, I think we can make things do, because many other states like Nepal have performed better. They have made choices, and some choices have worked out for them, some choices have not, but largely they have steered their ship. So, I mean, drawing lessons, we can of course, I think, manage. I don't think so things are that very pessimistic.
Are our current federal structures strong enough to sustain a republic, or does the RSP's centralized popularity suggest we need to rethink how power is decentralized entirely?
What is the nature of power of Nepali state and its concurrent relationship with Nepali society? If we ask this question, then we can answer the question, why did Nepal opt for a federal system? Nepal opted for a federal system because it wanted to do away with a long-held tradition of a centralized, Nepali state was a centralized agrarian feudal state. So we wanted to change that, and we wanted to change the nature of the power, but it doesn't happen overnight. So we'll have to see how the power blocks shift. So from 1950, the year when 1950-51, when Nepal, when it was promised that Nepal would have a constituent assembly which would decide its fate, it took another 5 decades for us to come to that position. We also came to a conclusion for a federal state. The demand for federal state is very old. Way back in the 1950s, there was a demand, especially in Tarai. And we now see that the Tarai movement, or the Madhis movement of 2007, was also very significant in heralding the federalism, along with the decade-long Maoist-led civil war. So all of this, so we will have to consider the fact that why did we sort of arrive at this point? So if RSP, I mean, with RSP, I think there's a lot of confusion, because publicly some of their senior members have said we do not need federal structure, it is too costly, and all that political paraphernalia that comes with the criticism of, or rather cynicism of, federalism has been publicly stated. But then we also know that it's a historical fact that Nepal came to a federal state because we wanted to not just devolve power, but we also wanted to share power, because it's sharing and share rule and self-rule. So that is why federalism exists. To answer the other part of your question, can our structures sustain? I'm not sure, because we've not done a audit of the way we practiced federalism. For example, there is a council called, it's a constitutionally sort of position, National Coordination Council, which is headed by Prime Minister, and this council is supposed to, it's a 20-member council which has federal ministers and all chief ministers of 7 states. So they are supposed to meet regularly and discuss issues in federal governance. This has not happened. And there are, for example, the central government was supposed to legislate laws in order to ensure in order to facilitate the implementation of federalism. For example, provincial police. Unless you change the national police law, provincial police cannot sort of operate accordingly. So all these things are there. So we have to first, I think, do a audit of the practice of federalism, and then sort of come to a conclusion whether our current practice of federalism is on the right track. I, for one, believe it is on the right track. I mean, theoretically, because if you want to do away with this practice, then the forces that this doing away will unleash will be very difficult for both society and state to handle.
Lastly, what takeaways or learnings do you think the next government, our new government, can take from previous governments, and what would you say would be blind spots that it will need to avoid?
Okay. Since the new political actors in town have been saying that the last 35 years nothing has occurred in the last 35 years, I would sincerely request them to look back on those 35 years, be that the political and the parliamentary practices, be that the economic practices, be that the cultural policies that the Nepali state has stood for, and the positives and the negatives out of those practices. Now, as for the blind spot, I think there's a lot of apprehension on two fronts. One, as I indicated, RSP's real commitment to federalism, inclusion, and the constitutional principles as such. The other blind spot is, this drive for technocratic governance, what will happen to the question of inclusive development and the other questions that comes with, because this political set is going to emphasize on meritocracy, and as I've already indicated, meritocracy is very important, but in a society that has been historically sidelined, and where inequality reigns large. So how do you sort of manage that competing tension? I think that would be another blind spot that this new incoming government will have to pay attention to.
Mr. Kral, thank you so much for your time and opinion here on Insight.
Thank you, Saraji, for having me.
Well, as the first session of the new federal parliament is convening in a few days or weeks' time, the nation enters a period defined by a mandate unseen in decades. The transition from campaign promises to legislative action begins now, marking a critical test for governance, accountability, and structural reforms that have long been at the center of national discourse. How these representatives navigate the complexities of this new assembly will define the trajectory of the country's stability and economic resilience. We will keep tracking these developments here on NTV World. Thank you for being part of this conversation on Insight. Until next time.
A majestic destination blessed by cultural, religious, historic, and natural diversities. Nepal is the country of Mount Everest and the birthplace of Lord Gautama Buddha. Karnali is synonymous to Nepal. One can experience the diversity of Nepal by visiting Karnali province. It is a must-go destination for those who want to experience the real Nepal. Karnali, that represents Nepal's age-old civilization, is in itself mesmerizing. The province has immense tourism potential with its unique natural, religious, cultural, archaeological, and historic diversity. The famous tourist destinations in the province have played an important role in representing Nepal at the international level. Tourism can be the base for prosperity of Karnali region based on its immense prospects. Lakes, water bodies, and famous religious sites are the major attractions for tourists in this province. Rara Lake, Sephoksundu Lake, Bulbule Lake, Chayanath, Dai Lake, Sinja Valley, Humla. This is Rara. Rara is the largest lake in Nepal. The lake is situated at Chayanath Rural Municipality of Mugu District in the Rara National Park. The unique lake is not just known for the different species of rare fishes and the musk ducks, but also for the changing color as per the climatic condition. Many foreign tourists come here to witness the camouflage of this majestic lake. A virgin destination a few years back. Now, more than 50,000 tourists flock the Rara Lake every year, and the number is constantly on the rise.
Land and air are the two means to reach Rara Lake. You can reach Rara in a day from Kathmandu by air. From Trivandrum International Airport, Kathmandu to Nepalganj, and another flight from Nepalganj to Talcher Airport in Mugu is the easiest option. However, from Talcher, it is another 3 hours uphill walk to reach the breathtaking Rara Lake. If you choose land travel, it might take up to 3 days. A day's travel from Kathmandu to Surkhet, an overnight stay. Manma, the district headquarters of Kalikot, from Surkhet, an overnight stay. And on the 3rd day, you can reach the Rara Lake. You need not walk if you choose this route for Rara Lake. Humla is a very remote Himalayan district of Nepal bordering Mugu. It has great touristic importance. Many pilgrims who want to go to the mythical Kailas mountain via Mansarovar take the journey via Humla district. Tourists, mainly Indian pilgrims, travel to Mansarovar, one of the largest pure water bodies at the highest altitude in the world, for religious purposes. This is the shortest and the most convenient route for the pilgrims. Most of the pilgrims traveling to Mansarovar choose air trip up to Simikot of Humla from Nepalganj. From Simikot, helicopter trip up to Hilsa, from where they enter Chinese autonomous region of Tibet. One day's drive from entering Tibet, the pilgrims reach Mansarovar. The Kimi Valley of Humla is another new tourist destination in the district. Ancient idols of archaeological importance and the monasteries have given it a new name, the Valley of Monasteries. These priceless statues, sculptures, and artifacts are the major attractions in the valley. Majority of the tourists visiting Karnali are the pilgrims from India. Culturally, the people of the Karnali region believe in multi-deity worship, but majority pay homage to their ancestral deity, the master god. The famous ritual of worshipping 12 master deities has become a popular subject for researchers and tourists alike. Karnali is a majestic land, naturally as well as culturally. It has religious and cultural heritages in abundance. It offers attractions for tourists of varying interests. Somewhat deprived in education, health, and employment. Karnali's tourism potential, due to its unique and diverse nature, geography, religion, culture, history, and archaeology, is unexplored. Many potential tourist destinations have yet to be explored in this region. So far, 101 destinations in the region have been branded as of touristic importance. Of the 101, 13 are under federal government, 9 under province government, and 79 under local levels. Karnali might lack top-class infrastructures including roadways, hotels or communications, but many destinations attract adventure tourists. Likewise, medicinal herbs like Yarsagumba, Kali Marsi paddy, millet and barley fields attract tourists when in full bloom. Some of the best organic dishes on offer you might find Kali Marsi paddy, honey, broad beans, dry apple, marfa, barley, sip wool products as the gifts of Karnali. Whitewater rafting in the 5th best river in the world, Karnali, and very tall and majestic Kanjirova, Patarasi and Cisne mountains, open for expedition, challenge mountaineers and explorers alike. Karnali is also known as the origin of civilizations, including language, literature, art, and culture. It's a pure and revered land. It has a lot to offer to researchers and explorers. Surkhet, the provincial headquarters of Karnali, is the gateway to most of the tourist destinations. Karnali Highway connects some of the destinations, including Kotgadi, Panchadeval, Bilaspur, Mahabu area in Delhi. Pachal waterfall in Kalikot, Sinja Valley and the Dul Monastery of Jumla, and Rara Lake of Mugu. Very few destinations of Mugu and Jumla have road access. On the other hand, many budget travelers are not encouraged to traveling in Karnali, as it is relatively expensive due to unavailability of road network. It is a must-go destination for those who want to experience the real Nepal.
This is The World This Week, your weekly roundup of the latest international events and updates. This is me, Bhavana Casey. In this edition, we bring you the stories making headlines across the globe, from geopolitical tensions and major political developments to scientific breakthroughs, cultural celebrations, and remarkable human stories. We have all that you need. Let's begin with the Middle East, where tensions continue to escalate, raising concerns about regional stability and global security. The conflict between the United States, Israel and Iran has intensified with heavy airstrikes and retaliatory missile attacks across the region. Iran has launched drones and missiles targeting military and energy infrastructures, while U.S. and Israeli forces continue to carry out strikes on Iranian facilities.
The conflict in the Middle East has entered its third week with no signs of easing, raising concerns about regional stability and global security. Iran has stepped up attacks targeting energy infrastructure across the region, striking ships near Iraq and well fields in Saudi Arabia. Iranian officials warned that the country could set the region's oil and gas on fire if its own ports or energy facilities were attacked. Iran has launched multiple drone strikes towards Gulf Arab states, including Saudi Arabia, following warnings from its new supreme leader Moshe Khamenei, who cautioned regional governments against hosting U.S. military bases. Khamenei vowed retaliation for Iranians killed in recent hostilities and dismissed American security guarantees as a lie. In response, U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened significant military action, posting on the social media platform Truth Social that Iran's naval and air forces, along with its leadership, could face devastating consequences. Elsewhere in the region, Saudi Arabia reported intercepting several drones, while debris struck a building in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, and 4 crew members were killed after a U.S. refueling aircraft crashed over Iraq.
The escalating tensions in the Middle East have disrupted energy supply routes and tanker traffic through the crucial shipping lane, pushing global oil prices sharply higher. Oil prices surged above $100 a barrel, while global stock markets crashed after Iran's leader called for blocking the strategic Strait of Hormuz and opening new fronts in the conflict with the United States and Israel.
Rising tensions in the Middle East have disrupted key energy supply routes and tanker traffic through the strategic Strait of Hormuz, sending global oil prices sharply higher and rattling financial markets. The disruption followed attacks on 3 cargo vessels in the Gulf, heightening concerns over the safety of one of the world's most critical oil shipping lanes. In response to the spike in energy prices, the United States has announced plans to loosen sanctions on countries purchasing Russian oil transported by sea in an effort to stabilize markets. Oil prices surged past $100 per barrel, while global stock markets declined amid growing fears of prolonged instability in the region. The spike came after Iran's leader called for blocking the Strait of Hormuz and opening new fronts in the conflict involving the United States and Israel, further intensifying geopolitical uncertainty. It is warned that any sustained disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, a vital corridor for global energy supplies, could have significant consequences for oil markets, inflation, and the broader global economy.
56-year-old Moshe Khamenei has become Iran's new supreme leader after Iran's Assembly of Experts selected him following the death of his father Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He has vowed to maintain a hardline stance in the Middle East conflict, including keeping the strategic Strait of Hormuz closed to pressure the United States and Israel. The leadership transition comes amid soaring regional tensions, raising fresh concerns about global energy markets and geopolitical stability.
Moshe Khamenei, the son of late Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been appointed to succeed his father as the new head of the Islamic Republic. The younger Khamenei was named Supreme Leader by the top clerical body, the Assembly of Experts, in a statement published shortly after midnight on Monday in Iran. Other contenders for the top position had included Ali Reza Arafi, one of 3 members of the interim council running the country, hardliner Mohsen Araki, and even Hassan Khomeini, the grandson of the founder of the Islamic Republic in 1979. But ultimately, the assembly settled on 56-year-old Moshe Khamenei. Born on 8 September 1969 in the holy city of Mashhad in eastern Iran, Moshe Khamenei is one of 6 children of the late supreme leader. His father was killed aged 86 just over a week ago in Tehran, became supreme leader in 1989. He is the only child of the former supreme leader to hold a public position despite having no official post. He is regarded as close to conservatives, notably primarily because of his ties with the Revolutionary Guard, the ideological arm of the Islamic Republic's military. The U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions on Mustafa Khamenei in 2019 during President Donald Trump's first term, saying he represented the supreme leader despite never being elected or appointed to a government position aside from work in the office of his father. U.S. President Donald Trump has reacted cautiously to Iran appointing Mustafa Khamenei as the new supreme leader, saying he is not happy and will decide the war's course with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Israel has warned the new leader could be a target as the U.S.-Iran conflict escalates. China has approved a new 5-year economic blueprint that could reshape the future of the world's second-largest economy. The plan signals a major shift towards artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, and stronger domestic production as Beijing moves away from its traditional reliance on property and infrastructure.
5-year plans have historically shaped China's economic transformation, but experts say this one may mark a turning point. For more than 4 decades, China's rapid rise was powered by infrastructure construction, export manufacturing, and a booming property sector. That model is now under strain. Economic growth has slowed, the real estate market has weakened, and China's population is beginning to shrink. Against that backdrop, the government has set an annual growth target of around 4.5 to 5%. The lowest range China has seen since the early 1990s. The new plan therefore signals a structural shift in how China intends to grow. Instead of relying primarily on construction and exports, Beijing says the next phase will depend on innovation, advanced technology, and stronger consumer spending. Artificial intelligence sits at the center of that strategy. Officials say AI will be integrated across the economy, from factories and logistics network to healthcare systems and urban infrastructure. Research and development spending is expected to rise by more than 7% annually as China pushes to strengthen domestic capabilities in areas such as semiconductors, quantum computing, and smart manufacturing. This reflects another key priority: technological self-reliance. Amid growing technology competition with the United States and the restrictions on advanced chips, Beijing is accelerating efforts to build its own innovation ecosystem. At the same time, policymakers want Chinese consumers to play a larger role in economic growth. Household consumption currently accounts for about 40% of China's GDP, far below the global average. Officials say they want to increase that share by the end of the decade. To do that, the government plans policies aimed at raising incomes and reducing the financial pressures that make families reluctant to spend. Those include expanding elderly care services, supporting families raising children, and narrowing the income gap between urban and rural residents. Chinese leaders describe this approach as investing in people, the idea that households are more likely to spend when they feel secure about jobs, healthcare, and retirement. But the transition will not be easy. China's property sector, once responsible for roughly a quarter of economic activity when related industries are included, has been in a prolonged downturn since 2021. Falling home prices have eroded household wealth and confidence. Demographic pressures are also intensifying, with declined birth rates and a shrinking workforce posing long-term challenges. Even so, Beijing says the plan will reinforce China's role in the global economy. The strategy includes expanding renewable energy, accelerating the shift towards a low-carbon economy, and continuing to open parts of China's market to foreign investment. For the rest of the world, the stakes are significant. China is the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries, a major manufacturing hub and a key player in global climate policy. A stronger push into advanced technologies could reshape global industrial competition. Meanwhile, if China succeeds in turning its vast population into a more powerful consumer market, it could create new opportunities for companies and exporters worldwide. But if the transition proves difficult, particularly if weak consumer confidence persists. The effects could ripple through global supply chains and commodity markets. In that sense, the success or failure of China's latest 5-year plan will not just shape the country's economic future, it could also influence the trajectory of the global economy in the decade ahead. Shivani Thapa Bosnath, NTV World.
A high-profile trial against U.S. tech giants Meta and YouTube is nearing its conclusion, with plaintiffs alleging the companies designing their platforms to foster social media addiction. Meta, the multinational conglomerate behind Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, and YouTube, owned by Alphabet, face claims that their algorithms and features deliberately encourage prolonged user engagement, especially among the teenagers. A high-profile trial against U.S. tech giants Meta and YouTube is approaching its conclusion, with plaintiffs claiming the companies deliberately engineering their platforms to foster social media addiction. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, and YouTube, owned by Alphabet, are accused of using algorithm and features designed to keep users, especially the teenagers, engaged for extended periods. The case, closely watched by policymakers and public health experts, could set a precedent for how social media companies are held accountable for the mental health impact of their platforms. Plaintiffs allege the companies were aware of the harm their designs could cause but prioritized profit over user safety. Executives from both the companies have denied the allegations, arguing that their platforms provide tools for safe use and that users and parents also bear a responsibility. It is said the trial's outcome could influence future regulations on social media design and ease appropriate safety measures worldwide. NASA says it's on track to launch its Artemis 2 mission in early April, which will see astronauts fly around the moon for the first time in more than 50 years. The rocket had been set to blast off in March, but after a helium leak was discovered, it was returned to the Vehicle Assembly Building in Florida for repairs. This launch had been delayed after a helium leak forced the Space Launch System rocket to return to the Vehicle Assembly Building in Cape Canaveral for repairs. NASA officials say the issue has been resolved and the rocket is scheduled to roll back to its launch pad.
We are on track for a launch as early as April 1st, and we are working toward that date. I'll say the launch time on the April 1st is at 6:24 p.m. I also wanted to note, I'm sure many...
It has already been delayed by 2 years after problems were found with the heat shield on the first Artemis mission, which saw the Space Launch System and Orion capsule fly to the moon without any people on board. It will also be the first human flight on NASA's Mega Moon rocket. NASA official Lori Glaze further acknowledged that Artemis 2 is a test flight and carries inherent risk, but says the team and hardware are fully prepared for the mission.
Within those 6 days between the 1st and the 6th, we can't always turn around every day for an attempt. We would anticipate on the order of about 4 opportunities within that 6-day period. Again, while I am comfortable and the agency is comfortable with targeting April 1st as our first opportunity, just keep in mind we still have work to go. There are still things that need to be done within the VAB and out at the pad. And as always, we'll always be guided by what the hardware is telling us, and we will launch when we're ready. I want to close just by...
The Artemis 2 flight marks a critical step towards returning humans to the moon and advancing deep space exploration for future missions. It is learned the mission will skip a wet dress rehearsal, the final pre-launch fueling test, to stay on schedule. Chiang Mai Jews celebrated Thai National Elephant Day with a traditional Khan Toke feast and a colorful parade to promote the conservation of Thailand's national animal. The event highlights the cultural, historical and ecological importance of elephants while offering educational activities and interactive exhibits for visitors. Chiang Mai Jews celebrated Thai National Elephant Day with a traditional Khan Toke fruit feast and a parade to promote conservation of Thailand's national animal. The event featured a colorful parade led by the Chayu elephant mascot, youth groups and Jewish staff at the Asian Elephant exhibit. The celebration aimed to highlight the historical, cultural and ecological significance of elephants in Thailand. The highlight of the day was a massive Khan Toke buffet consisting of bananas, corn, carrots, pumpkins and grass prepared according to nutritional standards.
To boost tourism, the zoo also introduced a new mascot, Dao Nuyaya, as a companion to the existing Chayo mascot. The festivities included educational booths for youth featuring quiz games, elephant mask making workshops, and a painting session where participants wrote messages advocating for elephant protection.
A Saudi medical team has successfully separated Somali conjoined twins Rahima and Ramla during a complex 12-hour surgery in Riyadh. It marks the 68th successful operation under the Saudi conjoined twins program.
A team from the Saudi Conjoined Twins program successfully performed a complex 12-hour surgery to separate Somali conjoined twins Rahma and Ramla at King Abdullah Specialist Children's Hospital, officials said Monday. The procedure, conducted in 8 stages, involved 36 consultants, specialists, and technicians from anesthesiology, pediatric surgery, urology, orthopedic surgery, and plastic surgery, along with nursing and technical staff. Dr. Abdullah bin Abdul Aziz Al Rabia, Supervisor General of the King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center and head of the surgical team, described the operation as the 68th successful procedure under the Saudi Conjoined Twins program. Since its establishment, the program has treated 156 sets of conjoined twins from 28 countries, highlighting Saudi Arabia's role in international medical humanitarian work. Officials emphasized that the surgery demonstrates the kingdom's humanitarian and medical leadership at both regional and global levels. The medical team's dedication was hailed as a significant achievement for Saudi Arabia's healthcare sector. The twins' parents expressed gratitude to the Saudi leadership for the specialized care and hospitality extended during the daughter's treatment and wished continued security and prosperity for the kingdom. Rahma and Ramla are reported to be recovering steadily following the operation.
In the rainforest of the Philippines, entomologist Christian Lucanas spends his nights searching for cockroaches by headlamp, studying the often misunderstood insects and highlighting their vital role in maintaining healthy forest ecosystems.
In the dense rainforest of the Philippines, entomologist Christian Lucanas conducts nocturnal fieldwork using a headlamp to locate and collect cockroaches by hand. At the age of 31, Lucanas is recognized as the country's sole specialist on the insect, which he says plays a crucial role in maintaining healthy ecosystems. Lucanas spends long hours in remote forest areas meticulously documenting different species and their behaviors to better understand their ecological roles. The scientists emphasize that cockroaches are essential decomposers and a key food source for birds, spiders, and other wildlife. He calls for increased attention to the study and conservation of cockroaches, arguing that their ecological contributions are undervalued by their ubiquity. He also advocates for public education, aiming to shift perceptions of cockroaches from pests to vital contributors in nutrient cycling and food webs. Conservationists note that protecting even less charismatic species like cockroaches is vital to preserving biodiversity and sustaining the balance of tropical rainforest ecosystems.
In the historic city of Gaziantep, Turkish craftsman Mustafa Demir has turned his passion for forging traditional swords into a successful business, crafting handmade blades using centuries-old Ottoman techniques that now attract collectors and movie producers from around the world.
A man in Turkey's Gaziantep has transformed his hobby of making swords into a thriving profession, drawing attention from collectors and media producers around the world. Mustafa Demir began crafting swords as a pastime after being inspired by historical television series. Over time, the hobby evolved into a full-time profession, with Demir employing traditional Ottoman-era techniques, including the use of acid etching to create each piece. Producing a single sword takes an average of 4 days, reflecting the meticulous craftsmanship involved. The swords are custom designed, combining historical accuracy with artistic detail, which has made them highly sought after internationally. Collectors, as well as television and movie producers, regularly seek out Demir's work. Its swords are particularly popular in Europe and the Middle East, where demand continues to grow.
The Ho Chi Minh City Ao Dai Festival in Vietnam brought a vibrant display of Ao Dai to runway as designers unveiled hundreds of traditional and modern creations celebrating Vietnam's rich silk heritage and cultural identity during the 2026 celebration themed Golden Silk Threads.
Vietnam hosted the Ho Chi Minh City Ao Dai Festival, showcasing hundreds of traditional Ao Dai, the national dress of Vietnam, in a vibrant celebration of the country's cultural heritage. This year's event was inspired by the theme Golden Silk Threads, with designers showcasing creations that celebrate Vietnam's silk heritage while reflecting the landscapes, traditions, and cultural identity of the country's 3 regions. The presentation was structured into 3 chapters: the thread of time, the flow of heritage, the thread of connection, the city of light, and weaving aspirations. Organizers said the program highlights not only Vietnam's cultural heritage, but also the spirit of friendship and cultural exchange between Vietnam and other countries. The annual festival is one of the city's major cultural events, aimed at promoting the Ao Dai as a symbol of Vietnamese identity, while supporting tourism and the country's fashion and textile industries.
Well, this brings us to the end of this episode of The World This Week. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did bringing it to you. We shall see you again next week with a new episode. Also, do follow us on our website www.nepaltelevision.com, our social media handles, as well as our YouTube channel. Till then, take care and bye-bye.
Pokhara is undoubtedly #1 destination for tourists in Nepal. The valley, blessed with natural beauty, attracts domestic and foreign tourists alike. You must have already visited Pokhara. If you haven't or planning another trip, then these are some of the must-go places in Pokhara. The first attraction in Pokhara is the Pheva Lake. Boating in Pheva Lake is a ritual for every tourist visiting this paradise. The Tal Barahi temple at the center of the lake adds to the beauty of the place. A round-trip boat ride in Pheva Lake to and from the temple is a feature of both the lake as well as the temple. Separate boat ride, watching the reflection of Mount Machapuchri on the lake and fishing spice up the Pheva experience. The lakeside along the banks of the Pheva Lake is a popular tourist hub. Many tourists in Pokhara choose Devi's Fall as their second destination in Pokhara. The water from Pheva Lake exits towards Seti River through the Gupteshwar cave from this Devi's Fall. The mighty water stream rushing deep down into the gorge, covered by water vapor, is a magical sight. Pokhara is known as the city of lakes and caves. Many of the lakes and caves have religious importance. This is Gupteshwar cave at Chorepatan area. Inside the cave, the idol of Lord Shiva is a well-known pilgrimage. Further inside the cave, one can see the Devi's Fall. Mahendra cave is another famous place in Pokhara. and nearby is another well-known Chamere cave. Both the caves can be visited together. Two other well-known tourist destinations in Pokhara are Begnas and Rupa lakes. Fresh fish of Begnas Lake is a sought-after delicacy. Rupa Lake is just round the corner beyond a small hill towards the eastern edge of Begnas Lake. Away from the hustle and bustle of the town, Begnas and Rupa Lakes cannot be taken out of a tourist's itinerary. This is the famous White Monastery on top of the hill above Feva Lake. This is also a popular destination for domestic as well as foreign tourists. The top-angle bird's-eye view of Pokhara city from the monastery is a sight to behold. The placid Feva Lake, the tall mountain range, and the birds like paragliding pilots on the background of Sarankot Hill are mesmerizing. The Bindabasini temple in Pokhara is a famous shrine in Nepal. The best route to visit the temple is on the way to Sarankot. Devotees throng the Bindabasini temple, which is atop a small hill with panoramic view of Pokhara city. The Bindabasini temple is famous among the Hindus across the country. Sarankot is a hill station on top of a hill on the northwestern side of Pokhara. A must-go place to see the majestic Mount Machapuchre and Mount Dhaulagiri in the Annapurna range in front of the eyes, and also the Pokhara and Leknath cities on the other side. Sarankot is synonymous to paragliding in Nepal. Taking off from the Sarankot hill, one can enjoy the panoramic mountain range in addition to the bird's eye view of Pokhara city. Ultralight and zip flyer offer a thrill to adventure seekers in Pokhara and are becoming major interests for tourists. Other places, including Swarak in Sangja, have the potential to be world's best place for paragliding. First time in Nepal, paragliding accuracy World Cup was held at this place, situated at Mahapur of Virkot municipality of the district. The place drew global attention after the event. Pokhara, famous tourism destination of the country. Majority of locals engaged in tourism industry. The city of lakes and caves, hub of aviation sports. Some major destinations: Lakeside, Feva Lake and Tal Barahi Temple, Begnas and Rupa Lakes, Mahendra Gufa.
Culture and identity of a nation or community is deeply embedded in its craft and lifestyle. In this, specialized craft producers are major actors. Besides specialized skills and uniqueness, time adds value to such crafts. In this film, we explore two such specialized crafts, one in Kathmandu and the other in Niigata, that have played significant role in elevating their respective national culture and identity in the world's fair. The capital of Nepal, Kathmandu, is a spectacular blend of natural beauty and culture. Habitat to about 2.5 million people, the city holds a rich cultural history that dates back to the ancient times. The 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites it encompasses are evident to the fact. Swayambhunath, Bodhanath, Pashupatinath temple premises, Changunarayan temple area, as well as the 3 Darbar squares of Kathmandu, Patan and Bhaktapur enlisted in the UNESCO Cultural World Heritage Site are not only a glimpse of its civilization, but Nepalese treasured pride. The civilization of Kathmandu that lies 1400 meters above the sea level seemingly holds a close connection with copper products since time immemorial. Historical text has it that Kathmandu in ancient time was referred to as Nepal. Sanskrit lexicographers have a synonym of tamra or copper as Nepaliklam and Nepalam. Hence, the origin of the name Nepal is assumed to have been derived from the Sanskrit word copper. In Nepal, copper has been a basic raw material to a wide range of art and crafts, including in sculpture, architecture, detail and housewares making. Thus, it has over time been an integral part of Nepali civilization and lifestyle.
इस्वीको सुरुदेखि चाहिँ ताम्र को टुक्राहरूको व्यवहारबाट चाहिँ यसको चलनचल्ती भएको बुझिन्छ। त्यसपछि चाहिँ 6औं शताब्दीमा आएर चाहिँ यसबाट चाहिँ मुद्रा बनाउने चलन आयो। तिस्टुङको भटुवाल र पाल्चोक भन्ने दुई ठाउँमा अंशवर्माले राखेको अभिलेखमा चाहिँ यो ताम्रभाण्ड तामाका भाँडाहरू चाहिँ सरकारको स्वीकृति बिना बाहिर लानु हुँदैन भन्ने उल्लेख आएको छ। ह्वेनसाङ चाहिँ भारतमा आएर भारतबाट चाहिँ नेपाल भएर चाहिँ चीन फर्केको बुझिन्छ। त्यो चाहिँ 643-44 ईस्वी सम्बततिर आएको बुझिन्छ। त्यो जुन कैलाशकूट भवन छ त्यो कैलाशकूट भवन बारे ह्वेनसाङले एकदमै राम्रो चाहिँ उल्लेख गरेको छ कि यो 7 तलाको थियो। यसको चाहिँ छाना चाहिँ तामाको थियो। यसको चाहिँ नेपालमा चाहिँ तामाको पैसा चाहिँ चल्तीमा छ। यहाँका मानिसहरूले भाँडाकुँडाहरू तामाको चलाउँछ। यी कुराहरू उल्लेख गरेको छ जुन चाहिँ चाइनाको टाङ वृत्तान्तमा अथवा इतिहासमा उल्लेख गरिएको छ।
The earliest known repose image is Garudasana Vishnu, dated 607 CE from Changunarayan temple in Bhaktapur. Some historical metal idols of the 6th and 7th century are remaining in private possession or in museum collections abroad. A significant consideration as evidence of copper metal craft are the idols dating back to the 11th century excavated in Makwanpur, which is a district adjoining Kathmandu. At the moment, these rare valuables are safely harbored at the Patan Darbar Square Museum. Among the 3 cities of Kathmandu Valley, Patan is comparatively popular for copper craft. Hundreds of families, especially the Newars, who are natives of this cultural city, have been preserving their ancestral legacy of manufacturing copperwares and artifacts for generations now. In Nepal, copper artifacts are made mainly through two techniques, either by lost waxing or repoussé, which is a technique of pounding metal sheets. The Malla period between 1200 to 1482 is considered a golden era in terms of metalcraft in Nepal. An array of work dazzling in its quantity and quality was produced then, much of which survives. The popularity of Nepali artisans had reached far and wide. It was in this period that Araniko, the famous artisan, was taken to Tibet. In 1265, Emperor Kublai Khan of China, impressed with Araniko's work, invited him to the capital and got him to renovate the artifacts in the monastery there, dating back to the Song period. In 1274, Emperor Khan appointed Araniko the director of the court artisans in China. To date, artists in hundreds are committed to continue the legacy of copper craft in Nepal. Among them, some are successfully effortful to simultaneously take ahead promotion and expansion of the craft. Among such names is Rajkumar Shakya, renowned for his crafts and entrepreneurship. Shakya was born on 1966 in Patan in a family of metal craftsmen.
हाम्रो पुर्खौली अब बाजे बराजु देखि नै यही काममा लाग्नु भएको बुवाले काम गर्नु भएको जासलमा बसेर बुवासँगै बसेर खेल्दै सिक्दै काम गर्दै गर्दै परम्परागत तरिकाले नै सिकेको मैले सानो बेला सिक्दाखेरि त्यति बजार पनि थिएन यो कलाको अहिले आउँदाखेरि यो कलाको चाहिँ बजार पनि अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय जगतमा फैलिँदै गयो यसको चाहिँ उत्पादनमा पनि वृद्धि गर्नुपर्ने देखियो
Shakya's works have made a niche both in the national and international market. Passion, focus, devotion and search for new ideas is what has elevated Shakya's profile as compared to other artists. The incomparable expression of skill and creation of beauty are reflected in his works, which are beyond imagination for any ordinary artists. His widely acclaimed works of craft have been placed at various countries, with Japan, Vietnam, China, Thailand harboring his significant works. The latest is the 155 feet tall idol of Guru Padmasambhav in Bhutan. Based on repoussé, pounded sheets of copper were wrapped around iron skeleton, which was built using modern architecture. Supervised by Shakya, it took 4 years for 57 artisans to complete the idol.
2000 एक्सपो मा जर्मनमा मैले सबभन्दा ठूलो स्वयम्भूको स्तूपा बनाउने अवसर पाएँ फेरि पछि चाहिँ 2010 मा चाइनामा पनि फेरि वर्ल्ड एक्सपो मा त्यहाँ पनि मैले चाहिँ ठूलो स्तूपा बनाउने र अरु कलाकृतिहरू बनाउने मौका पाएँ त्यसमा चाहिँ अझ मैले चाहिँ हाम्रो हनुमान ढोकाको श्वेत भैरवको मुखाकृति 12 फिटको श्वेत भैरवको मुखाकृति पनि बनाउने अवसर पाएँ त्यो पनि त्यहाँ अब चाइनामा चाहिँ एक्सपोमा प्रदर्शन गर्न पाएँ त्यसपछि अनि चाहिँ मैले भुटानमा पद्मसम्भवको मूर्ति बनाउने पनि अवसर पाएँ
Cultural and anthropological experts have highly evaluated Shakya's efficiency and capabilities.
त्यो 14औं शताब्दीमा जुन परम्परा थियो हाम्रो नेपालबाट अन्य देशमा गएर चाहिँ नि कलाकारहरूले आफ्नो कला प्रस्तुत गर्ने नेपालको कलाकारितालाई त्यहाँ चाहिँ नि स्थापित गर्ने जुन काम गरेको थियो त्यसै कामको चाहिँ नि निरन्तरताको रूपमा अहिले हामीले 20औं 21औं शताब्दीमा राजकुमार साकेजीलाई पाएको छौं यस्तो ठुलो ठुलो ह्युज त्यो मूर्तिहरू बनाउने क्रममा चाहिँ नि त्यो मूर्तिको एउटा स्थानबाट अर्को स्थानमा सार्नु त्यस्तै गरी त्यसलाई चाहिँ प्रोपोर्सनेट मिलाउने आदि इत्यादि टेक्निकल पनि एकदमै कठिन काम हो अब यसलाई चाहिँ उहाँले अत्यन्तै माइन्युटली चाहिँ गर्नु हुँदो रहेछ
To reach Shakya's stature, however, takes a lot of dedication, devotion, practice and patience. Thus, not many youth look keen in pursuing with the profession. Keeping this in mind, Shakya also conducts classes for the younger generation in a bid to hand it over to them. Most interestingly, Shakya's son is also one of his pupils and has already joined him in his business.
हेरिटेजमा नेपालको एकदम टुरिस्टहरु पनि एकदम आकर्षित भयो हेरिटेजमा हैन त्यही भएर अब बुवा पनि यसमै लाग्नु भयो त्यही पनि मैले नि यसमै गरौँ कि जस्तो मलाई लाग्यो बुवा यति आर्टिस्ट भएर पनि अब मेरोमा पनि धेरै एक्सपेक्टेसन गर्छन् होला अरूले पनि त्यही भएर अब सिक्न काम गाह्रो पनि छ सिक्न अब टाइम पनि लाग्नेछ धेरै सिक्न पनि त बाँकी छ
Such noble endeavors, complemented by the engagement of the younger generation, have indeed sparked a hope that the prosperous tradition will be kept alive. For those involved in copper kitchenwares and housewares, the biggest emerging threat is the modern wares, which are both attractive and cheaper. In a bid to preserve their profession, they have now attempted to add diversity to their products based on the demand of the changing times. Meanwhile, there are others like Kalyan Krishna Tamrakar, who, although remaining in the trade, have embraced newer productions based on market needs. Tamrakar has been manufacturing artistic utensils along with internationally acclaimed singing bowls, which are mostly used in meditational purposes.
करीब 28 वर्ष भयो सिंगिङ बोल्स नयाँ सिंगिङ बोल्स बनाउने र त्यसमा अलिकति थेरापिक युजको लागि बनाएको सायद नेपालमा पहिलो नै मैले बनाए होला एउटा फिलोसफी हो र जहाँसम्म युटेन्सिल्स मैले बनाउने सन्दर्भमा पहिला यो धेरै पहिलाहरू बन्थ्यो र पछि बिस्तारै यो ब्रोन्जको युटेन्सिल्सहरू लोप हुँदै गयो अनि यो बनाउनु पाएको हुन्छ कि भनेर अनि हामीले यसलाई फेरि बनाउन थालेको
The market for singing bowls is mostly Europe and is used in intensive research and meditation. The sound created from the balls vary based on the utensil itself and is proven effective for improving blood circulation and hence is used in therapy as well. Tamrakar, whose forefathers had been copper craftsmen by profession, has justifiably promoted their knowledge and skills in the wider market through entrepreneurship. Majority of his buyers are from Germany and Japan.
やはり他で買いが利かないのと、さらにその日本の求める品質にネパールの人たちが合わせてものを作ってくれるからと思います。
私のユーザーは心を癒すそういったツールを大変求めているユーザーが多いです。例えばアロマセラピーの方でヨガの方そういった方たちの要望に応えるためにネパールから輸入しようと思いました。そうすると残ってる手作りは大変高いほとんどアーティストのレベルしか残りなくなります。一般の方が使う 商品はもう今やネパールでないとできないのが現状だと思っています。ですから私たちのユーザーはそれを望んでますから、今私もネパールから大変たくさんの量を輸入しています。
In the Yahikoyama terrain drained by Shinano River lies Niigata city. Rice farming is predominant owing to the rich soil deposit which makes it ideal for agriculture. Besides, it is also renowned for the high-quality copper mines. During the Meiji period, copper mining flourished in the foothills. Adorned in tulip blooms, the designated city of food and flowers does not rest even amidst thick blankets of snow. Tsubame in Niigata is a city of metal craft and craftsmen that have thrived through prosperity and tumultuous times. At the beginning of the 1600s, lot of artisans came to exist in the Tsubame Sanjo area, driven by the local administration's policy of encouraging side business. Thus originated the metal processing industry from the making of Japanese-style nails known as wakugi. The first artisans also produced household items including agricultural tools, kitchenwares and tobacco pipes. Once Japan started importing Western-style nails, the number of artisans gradually started decreasing. During the Second World War until 1945, the factories in the local area had to be mobilized to produce military goods. The 1950s was a time of mass production and mass consumption in Japan. Thus, metal processing companies grew multifold in number and size. Following the Plaza Accord that largely intervened currency markets, the factories gradually lost their business to their overseas competitors. They did not have as many orders as they once had. As a result, the local business temporarily but sharply declined.
今、燕市で追記銅器というふうに言われている、器といいますか、ものがありますけれども、それは一般的に金鉱でいう金属を加工する技術の中の単金と言われるものの一つでして、それを全国的に同じような技法はたくさんあるんですけれども、燕市ではそれを追記銅器と呼んでいる。燕市の追記銅器というのは伝統工芸技術としても県の指定にもなっておりますし、伝統工芸品としても指定されていますが、燕市の中ではだいたい今から250年くらい前の江戸時代の後期にその技術が仙台の方から来た職人によって伝わったと言われています。
Kakuhei Tamagawa also learned the technique from the craftsman and hence founded Gyokusendo in 1816. Since then, about 300 artisans have kept alive the traditional skills. The company is currently a leader in Niigata to preserve and expand the treasured tradition of tsukidoki. It is said during the Second World War, when weapons and arms mass production had peaked, the tsukidoki industry nearly disappeared owing to shortages of copper. It was Gyokusendo's then leadership that brought back the craftsmen dispersed across the country that helped in the revival of the industry. Gyokusendo celebrates its 200th anniversary in 2016. Today, its outlets are spread in top-notch departmental stores in high-end streets of Japan and overseas. Motoyuki Tamagawa is the 7th master of Gyokusendo. Since taking over the company at an early age, he has worked hard to promote his products and company. Tamagawa, who strongly believes in adapting to business management style with time rather than changing age-old skill patterns, introduced the trend of putting his artisans in direct contact with the customers at Gyokusendo's outlets and during exhibitions. This, he believes, not only helps customer understand the skill and hard work required to create an artifact, but also helps the artisans learn the needs and tastes of the changing times.
顔の見える商売をしようと思ったんですよね。でそこで私考えたのが商社を下ろさずに直接百貨店に行ってでそこで実演販売をして職人がお客様と会話するようなこのビジネスモデルを作っているんですね。この玉泉の方向としては、大量というよりは本当銅器を愛用してくださる方に対してちゃんと説明してちゃんと愛用していただける方を対象としたやっぱり商売をしていきたいと思ってますんで、だからそういうこと職人も、だから職人をどんどん増やすというわけではなくビジネスもどんどん大きくするわけではなくてちゃんと玉泉堂というブランドをね高めていくでお客様のその愛用するこれだけ満足度もやっぱり高めていくというところがすごく大事だと思ってますね。
At the Gyokusendo factory, about 15 artisans of various ages work hard by the day to improve their skills. Working with Gyokusendo is a dream for many artisans. Gyokusendo recruits one from among hundreds applying every year. For a craftsman, it can take about 20 to 30 years to acquire proficiency to handle a set of techniques all by himself. Each stroke in tsukidoki is made in such a way such that the marks do not overlap. The proficiency of an artisan is observed in a vessel made out of one copper sheet and without any seams. For the younger artisans, it is a matter of a lot of perseverance and patience. Today, all independent tsukidoki artisans in Tsubame were once trained at Gyokusendo. Among them, a prominent name is of an artist par excellence, Master Norio Tamagawa.
今のその木目金イコール木目金っていうのがもう、のりおさんのことなんですけれども、その土台となっているのはやっぱり玉泉堂で修行していた時代の追記銅器という技術が骨幹にあって根元のところにあって、でそこから、亡くなられた師匠のところに、弟子入りをしたりですとかいろんなご苦労修行の中でご苦労されながら、今、世界にも名前を馳せるようになった素晴らしい作品を作られるようになったと思います。
Master Norio Tamagawa is the pride of Niigata and is acclaimed as the living national treasure Japan. His insurmountable contribution in reviving mokumegane through his outstanding and unique creation is beyond comparison. The Tsubame Industrial History Museum, which is a hub to compile, preserve and exhibit industrial heritages, has set up a separate section to exhibit his works. This meticulously carved artifact harbored at the museum is the master's signature art piece. The masterpiece is a delicately hammered, refined handiwork that, owing to its traditional aura and aesthetic value, has awed art lovers and consumers across the world.
いわゆる就職って言いますか、会社へ入りますね。従業員として入って、何年か経った時に少し外の世界も見たいと思って東京へ2年ばかり修行に行ったんです。日本の芸大っていうね、その人たちとの交流もあったんで、その作品、私の場合はずっとほら商品を作ってたわけでしょ。商品じゃない作品作りのペースっていうのをね、 ああ違うもんだなっていうのをつくづく感じましたね。
The master reminisces it took him 11 years before he could call his product a piece of art. As a young artist, he took inspiration from his seniors to aim high and excel bigger dreams.
作品作りには影響ないね。作品の場合はあくまでも個人の欲求のままに作るんですからね。世間が何を求めてるかっていうのはあんまり関係ない。っていうのは力がいる仕事なんでね。もう70過ぎてね、現役っていうのは今まであんまりいなかったんです。だから私は仕方ないからやってるけども、だから夢はないけども、もう作品をいくつ作れるか。
The traditional skill nurtured by newer skills, tools and technology has elevated the 200-year-old technique to a world-class art. Contemporary sukidoki products include a wide range of aesthetically distinctive housewares and artifacts. Mr. Tatsushi Tamagawa, currently the chief manager at Gyokusendo, is Master Norio Tamagawa's son. He started as an artisan at Gyokusendo. Since then, much has changed. He has seen the changing business landscape, the diversity in products, which he says directly or indirectly determines the mindset and working style of an artisan.
言われたものを、早くきっちり作るっていうのがというのはいい職人だと思うんですけども、最近はプラス、いろいろこういう喋るものとかも今はそういうふうに、いろいろお客様に説明するとかそういうものも含まれて、全てこなしていい職人になるのかなという感じは最近はありますね。
Most fascinatingly, his son Keita, the youngest of the Tamagawas, also works under him at Gyokusendo. At 20, Keita is already an efficient beginner. Initially, driven by his grandfather's success, when he joined the company, it was but a prized escape for Keita. But now, Keita is intensively working hard to attain the precision to be a better artist.
そうですね。どちらの方もすごい仕事に対して一生懸命で寡黙なので、そういうところを自分に取り入れられたらいいなとは思ってますね。なんか、僕のお父さんもなんかおじいちゃんに真似してるっていうか似てきているのでなんかそうですね。おじいちゃんからはやっぱりちょっと仕事がテキパキ早いので、そういうところを見習いたいなとは思いますね。そういうところです。はい。
Since the beginning of human civilization, art has evolved based on culture and vice versa. Nevertheless, the demand of changing times has had a detrimental role to play in its course and form. Whether it is Niigata or Kathmandu, artisans continue to express themselves in their artworks. There is little doubt the modern-day artisans' creativity, aided by modern technology, has not only helped preserve traditional skills, but also contributed to the ascent of human civilization.
Nepal faces severe cooking gas shortage. Consumers queue for LPG as authorities warn against hoarding and black market sales. Kathmandu garbage disposal comes to a halt following strike by disposal site locals citing unfulfilled agreements. Kathmandu air pollution sees temporary drop. Rain improves AQI, but experts stress for long-term measures. Nepal passport services to be temporarily disrupted for system upgrade. Citizens urged to apply early as full stabilization may take 3 months. Israel targets over 200 sites in Iran as tensions escalate. Lebanese bridge destroyed in strikes on Hezbollah. A Nepali team embarks for Delhi to participate in IAU 50-kilometer World Championships. 5-member team bid farewell at the airport. Hello there, welcome to NTV World News Hour, coming to you live from Kathmandu at 2200 hours Nepal time. Now, the news in details. A severe cooking gas shortage across Nepal has left consumers struggling to meet daily needs, with long queues forming outside depots in Kathmandu and other districts. Many people have returned home empty-handed as LPG cylinders remain unavailable. A disruption linked to global supply chain issues amid rising tensions in West Asia. Reports indicate attacks on ships carrying petroleum products between Iran and Israel have affected fuel deliveries, while some traders are accused of hoarding cylinders and selling them on the black market. Authorities have warned that the strict action will be taken against anyone creating artificial shortages. We delve more on this in our Issue of the Day segment later in the bulletin. Garbage disposal from Kathmandu Valley has come to a halt at Bancharedada as local residents protest unfulfilled agreements with city authorities. Communities in Kokani, Nuakot and Dhunbesi in Dhading have blocked waste-carrying vehicles, demanding the implementation of past commitments by the Kathmandu Metropolitan City and the Ministry of Urban Development. Local leaders and political figures have supported the protests, citing delays in loan agreements and other promises. The standoff underscores ongoing challenges in urban waste management and coordination between citizens and government in Nepal. Air pollution in Kathmandu Valley and other major Nepali cities has ceased after recent weather changes, with the air quality index dropping from 178 to 149. Kathmandu fell from the world's second most polluted city to 12th as rainfall on Thursday helped clear dust and airborne particles. Officials, including Department of Environment Director General Gyanraj Subedi, cautioned that sustained improvement requires stricter waste management, vehicle emission controls and fire prevention measures. It is stressed that while rain temporarily improves air quality, long-term strategies are essential to combat pollution in rapidly growing urban areas. We bring more on this in our segment cover story later in the bulletin. Now, Nepal's Passport Department has announced temporary disruptions in services as it installs a new system affecting district offices, area administrations and Nepali missions abroad for 1 to 3 days. Officials warned that the transition could delay passport issuance for up to a week, with full system stabilization expected to take 1 to 3 months. Citizens planning international travel over the next 5 months are urged to apply for passports before the interim closure begins. The department has said an official notification with detailed timelines will be issued soon. Meanwhile, deadly explosions shook Tehran on Friday near a pro-government rally attended by senior officials, including President Masoud Pezeshkian and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. At least one person was killed as blasts occurred close to demonstrations marking Quds Day, an annual event initiated by the late Iranian leader Ruhollah Khomeini in support of Palestinians. The violence comes amid escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, with Israel reporting strikes on more than 200 targets in western and central Iran over the past day. International journalists reported loud blasts across the city, underscoring rising tensions in the region. A bridge over the Litani River in southern Lebanon was destroyed in an Israeli strike on what the Israel Defense Forces called a crucial crossing point for Hezbollah terrorists. The Israeli military expanded evacuation warnings for residents north of the Litani River, urging them to move immediately north of the Jarani River, around 40 kilometers from the Israeli border. The strikes come amid ongoing Israeli operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon, as well as recent large-scale air attacks on more than 200 targets in western and central Iran. The Israeli army released footage of the Iran strikes on March 12, highlighting the widening regional conflict. A 5-member Nepali team, including 4 athletes, has departed for New Delhi, India, to compete in the IAU 50-kilometer World Championship on Saturday. Nepal will be represented equally in both male and female categories, with Tilak Bahadur Sunwar and Remes Limbu competing in the men's race, and Sunsari Rokaya and Lakpa Nima Sherpa in the women's race. Rajan Khatri, Senior Vice President of the Nepal Adventure Running Federation, is leading the team as manager. National Sports Council member Sant Kumar Mehta saw off the athletes at Tribhuvan International Airport, wishing them success. The team aims to showcase Nepal's growing presence in international long-distances running events. Cooking gas shortages have left consumers across Nepal waiting in long queues, with many returning home empty-handed. Authorities say the problem is fueled by panic buying and possible hoarding as the government faces pressure to act. We'll look into this more after a short break. This is NTV World News Hour, time for issue of the day. The shortage of cooking gas has left consumers across Nepal struggling to meet their daily needs. In Kathmandu and several districts, people have been seen waiting in long queues outside gas depots and shops. However, many consumers have been forced to return home empty-handed due to the unavailability of LPG cylinders in the market. The shortage is believed to be linked to disruptions in global supply chains following escalating tensions in West Asia. Reports suggest that attacks targeting ships carrying petroleum products amid the conflict between Iran and Israel have affected fuel supply routes. Local consumers say gas cylinders that used to arrive weekly have not been delivered for nearly 2 weeks. Meanwhile, some consumers have also accused traders of hoarding cylinders and selling them on the black market at prices higher than the official rate. Authorities have said strict action will be taken against those creating artificial shortages. Amid growing public concern over the cooking gas shortage, the Nepal Oil Corporation has clarified that there is currently no disruption in the supply of LPG from India. Speaking at a press conference in Kathmandu on Friday, the corporation's spokesperson Manoj Kumar Thakur said gas imports are continuing according to demand. According to the corporation, the shortage seen in the market is mainly due to panic buying and unnecessary stockpiling by consumers, following rumors of a possible supply crisis.
अहिले त जति माग हाम्रो जति खपत गरिरहेछौं त्यति नै ग्यास आइरहेको अवस्था छ र कम से कम यो चाहिँ सर्वसाधारण माझ जुन चाहिँ हुने खाने वर्गमा चाहिँ के भयो भने ग्यास सिलिन्डर चाहिँ स्टकमा बस्यो तर जो विद्यार्थी वर्ग हैन निम्न वर्गका उपभोक्ताहरू छन् उहाँहरूले तत्काली बजारमा गएर चाहिँ ग्यास नपाइरहेको अवस्थालाई चाहिँ त्यो समस्यालाई समाधान गर्नलाई चाहिँ यो 7.1 केजीले चाहिँ सहज रूपमा चाहिँ समाधान गर्छ भन्ने निगमको विश्वास छ.
To manage distribution and prevent hoarding, the corporation has started distributing half-filled gas cylinders. In other news, the National Human Rights Commission of Nepal has urged the government to take immediate measures to ease the distribution of petroleum products and protect consumers' rights. In a press statement issued Friday, the commission directed authorities to bring those involved in creating artificial shortages under legal action. The commission also asked the government to regulate unnecessary shortage of petroleum products and ensure the regular supply of essential goods. According to the Commission, monitoring teams visited the Nepal Oil Corporation, the Department of Commerce, Supplies and Consumer Protection and gas depots to assess the situation. The Commission said that rumors about shortages combined with transportation management issues in some gas companies have created panic among consumers. The Commission also noted reports that some traders may be creating artificial shortages in the market. As consumers across Nepal face difficulties finding cooking gas, attention has turned toward how consumer protection mechanisms are working in practice. The situation has also highlighted the role of the Consumer Court of Nepal in addressing market-related complaints. Siksha Bhattrai takes a look.
Despite the establishment of a special court to protect consumer rights, the ongoing cooking gas shortage has once again raised serious questions about market regulation in Nepal. The government established the Consumer Court of Nepal on March 15 last year with the objective of ensuring justice for consumers and resolving disputes related to goods and services. According to court officials, 17 cases were registered during the last fiscal year, while 23 cases have been filed in the current fiscal year so far. However, the recent shortage of cooking gas has exposed gaps between legal provisions and their implementation. Despite laws that clearly prohibit creating artificial shortages or charging excessive prices, consumers in different parts of the country say they are still facing inflated prices and limited availability of gas cylinders. Consumer rights activists argue that without strict monitoring and enforcement, such problems will continue to affect the public.
गुणस्तर भने जस्तो भएन अथवा समयमै पाउनुपर्ने सुविधा पाएन भनेदेखि चाहिँ त्यो बापत भएको उसलाई शारीरिक मानसिक भौतिक जस्तो किसिमको पनि क्षति छ त्यो बापत उहाँहरूले चाहिँ क्षतिपूर्ति उल्लेख गरेर आउन सक्नुहुन्छ अथवा क्षति पुग्ने व्यक्ति नै हुनुपर्छ भन्ने छैन उहाँको हकवाला पनि हुन सक्नुहुन्छ वारेस राखेर नि गर्न सकिन्छ अथवा उपभोक्ता हित सम्बन्धी कुनै संस्थाले पनि उहाँको पक्षमा चाहिँ उजुरी दिन सक्छ.
They say that although awareness about consumer rights has improved in recent years, effective market monitoring remains weak.
अब मानव सचेत हुँदै गयो त्यसैले अब नयाँ जेनेरेसनलाई पनि हामी यही सचेतना कार्यक्रमका मार्फत अनौपचारिक माध्यमबाट अथवा औपचारिक शिक्षाका माध्यमबाट चाहिँ हामी चेतना जगाउनु पर्छ.
The ongoing gas shortage has therefore renewed debate about how effectively consumer protection laws are being implemented.
This wraps up our Issue of the Day segment. On to the next segment now. After days of choking smog, rainfall has finally brought some relief to the Kathmandu Valley, helping clear the polluted skies. But as the air slowly improves, spring is stealing the spotlight. Across the valley, delicate cherry blossoms are bursting into bloom, turning busy streets into soft pink scenes and reminding everyone that spring has truly arrived. More on this after a short break. You're watching NTV World News Hour. Time for cover story. Air pollution that blanketed major cities in Nepal, including the Kathmandu Valley, over the past few days has begun to gradually decline following rainfall across several parts of the country. The air quality index in Kathmandu reached some of the highest levels recorded this week, placing the capital among the world's most polluted cities. By Friday afternoon, the index had dropped to 149, moving the city down to 12th place among the world's most polluted urban areas. Meteorological data indicate that rainfall and improved weather conditions helped clear pollutants that had built up in the atmosphere in recent days. Air pollution remains a recurring environmental challenge in the Kathmandu Valley, particularly during the dry season when dust, vehicle emissions and regional forest fires combine with stagnant weather conditions to worsen air quality. Yet as the valley begins to see slightly clearer skies, spring is also beginning to transform the landscape. Cherry blossoms have once again painted parts of the Kathmandu Valley in soft shades of pink and white this spring. As our colleague strolls along the valley's busy roads, she pauses beneath the delicate cherry blossoms, as it is called in Nepal, blossoms to explore their brief yet beautiful bloom. Diksha Awasthi brings more.
As we've come to mid-March, spring has quietly arrived in Kathmandu. After months of winter's quiet gloom, the city has begun to blush again. Walking along the capital Kathmandu's roads, cherry blossoms greet with delicate pink and white petals. In Nepal, they are often called payu, while across the world, they are known as sakura. From Naxal to Lazimpat and stretching toward Tinkune, the trees are still alive in mid-March. Cherry blossoms usually appear from late February to mid-March. Their beauty, however, is famously brief. The flowers bloom for only a few weeks before drifting away with the wind. And perhaps that fleeting nature is what makes them so special. Especially in Japan, sakura holds a deep cultural significance. Cherry blossoms symbolize renewal, optimism, and the transient nature of life. In Kathmandu, petals sometimes float through the air like soft confetti, settling on pavements and roads like a pink carpet. But these blossoms are not entirely native to the valley. Many of Kathmandu's cherry blossom trees were planted decades ago as ornamental trees. Some introduced through international exchanges, including collaboration with Japan. Over time, they quietly became part of the city's landscape. Coincidentally, this spring arrives as Nepal itself stands at a turning point. As the country navigates a shifting political landscape and high public expectations, these fragile blossoms seem to carry a special message. Just like the payu blooms, soft yet hopeful, many Nepalis are looking toward the future with optimism for a more promising tomorrow. For now, Kathmandu breathes in clear skies and vibrant petals. It reminds that in the busiest city like Kathmandu, nature finds its way to bloom. Diksha Awasthi with camera person Rasila Shrestha reporting for NTV World.
The seasonal change is seen not only as a natural transition but also as a moment of renewal, offering a visual reminder of hope and optimism for the months ahead. Today we asked people how they view spring's arrival in our Public Pulse segment. Let's have a look at what they had to say.
After winter has finished, the spring, I just love that it's not too sunny. And like there is also wind, and I love this combination of this a little sun which is just warm and this it's windy, so I feel very happy and fresh. It's like a new start. Yes, it's very, and the cherry blossoms, it also looks very good, and it's very nice to walk along this path.
We can see there the cherry blossom flower is a Japanese national flower, and this enhances the beauty of road. As we can see here, pink, white and green color. It's so gorgeous and it's enhanced road beauty also. As usually, Kathmandu is very busiest city, but this flower enhances beauty and it's a national flower of Japan also.
When summer comes right after this winter season, we observe that there are flowers, blooms, and birds start chirping, and we just hang out with friends, enjoying this spring season.
वातावरण राम्रो गराउँछ नि चाहिन्छ रुख बिरुवाहरू हामीलाई हैन रुखको छेउछाउ भएको वातावरण राम्रो हुन्छ शहर पनि राम्रो देखिन्छ.
The weather is too good and the flower also very good. And many tourists are come to visit different places, cities, and it's give a good natures.
And that concludes our cover story of the day. Now the remaining updates. 6 political parties have secured national party status in Nepal following the House of Representatives elections held on March 5 under the country's mixed electoral system. As per Nepal's constitution, a political party must win at least 1 seat through the first-past-the-post system and secure at least 3% of the total votes under the proportional representation system to be officially recognized as a national party. This means that even if a party wins several direct seats, it cannot gain national status without crossing the 3% threshold, while parties that meet both criteria can qualify even with fewer direct seats. National party status does not change the salary or service benefits of members of parliament, but it provides practical advantages such as participation in the Parliamentary Business Advisory Committee and invitations to all party meetings called by the President or the Prime Minister. However, to formally appoint parliamentary positions such as a chief whip and whip, or party must have at least 10 MPs, meaning smaller national parties may still face limitations in exercising certain parliamentary roles. Preliminary reports indicate that candidates in Nepal's March 5 House of Representatives elections spent far more than the legal limits set by the Election Commission. Observers from the National Election Observation Committee and the Election Observation Committee in Nepal found that actual spending in some constituencies was up to 10 times higher than the prescribed limits of 3.3 million rupees for first-past-the-post candidates and 200,000 Nepali rupees for proportional system candidates.
फेसबुकमा देखिरहेको छ त्यो बिल बजेटै हाल्दैछ ड्याम हाल्दैछ 14 लाख 13 लाख 7 लाख मेरो त लाख पनि खर्च भएन एक्चुअल अडिट गरियोस् कहाँ कति कसरी खर्च भयो भन्ने कुरा अघि मलाई दिनुभएको एउटा उदाहरण अनि हेलिकप्टरहरू प्रयोग गर्ने उदाहरण अनि ठुल्ठुला गाडीहरू प्रयोग गर्ने उदाहरण अनि त्यस किसिमको देखेको छ त आँखाले भन्दाखेरि त्यो चाहिँ पत्याउने आधार देखिँदैन.
The report also highlighted challenges in transparency due to unreported digital and social media advertising, weak compliance with the Election Code of Conduct, and limited voter education. While public trust in the Election Commission remained high, observers noted gaps in explaining voting procedures and ensuring equal access to election information, especially in remote areas. A detailed investigation into campaign expenses and methods is expected to be published separately in the coming weeks. Now, a government probe committee has recommended new safety measures following the fatal Dhading bus accident on February 23, which killed 19 people and injured 25. The committee suggested introducing mandatory rest periods for nighttime drivers, limits on maximum driving hours, and an exhaustion management system for public vehicle operators. The bus traveling from Pokhara to Kathmandu lost control and fell near the Trishuli riverbank in Benighat Rorang Rural Municipality, according to the report submitted to Home Minister Om Prakash Aryal. The study, conducted over 2 weeks and led by Joint Secretary Rishi Ram Tiwari with representatives from traffic police, transport authorities and road divisions, also recommended the use of digital monitoring technology to prevent similar accidents. The report also included measures to provide relief to families affected by such crashes and outlined steps for government agencies to enhance road safety. 21 Nepali citizens who were trapped in illegally operated online scam centers and casinos in Cambodia have been rescued and returned to Nepal. The group, many of whom were staying in Cambodia without valid visas, were brought back with the support of the Nepali embassy in Bangkok, the Cambodian government and the Non-Resident Nepali Association in Cambodia. The embassy has urged other Nepalis stranded or in difficult situations to reach out for assistance, noting that passports are sometimes confiscated or lost at scam centers. Cambodian tourism statistics show a sharp increase in Nepali visitors from 101 in 2021 to over 9,600 in 2025, highlighting growing travel ties but also potential risks. Authorities continue efforts to bring back other Nepalis and warn citizens against involvement in illegal activities abroad. Mohan Prasad Oli, father of CPN-UML chair and former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, was laid to rest today at Pasupati Arya Ghat in Kathmandu. Oli passed away at the age of 97 while receiving treatment at the Nepal-Korea Friendship Municipality Hospital in Pokhara. Chair Oli, the eldest son, offered the funeral lamp over his father's cremation pyre. Several senior political leaders and dignitaries, including Nepali Congress President Gagan Kumar Thapa, former Prime Ministers Salana Karnali and KP Sharma Oli's party colleagues, attended to pay their respects. The funeral drew widespread attention, highlighting Mohan Prasad Oli's long-standing presence and respect in Nepalese political and social circles. In other news, many young Nepalis are leaving the country to find work abroad, highlighting the nation's ongoing employment challenges. Amid this trend, some entrepreneurs are finding success at home in Syangja, turning vegetable farming into a profitable business. For over 22 years, the local entrepreneurs have been cultivating seasonal and non-seasonal vegetables such as cauliflower, cabbage, bitter gourd and cucumber on area expanding up to roughly half a hectare farm, selling them directly from their home and earning between 800,000 to 1 million rupees annually. Their success demonstrates that Nepal's agricultural sector, when managed with modern techniques, proper market access and government support, can offer viable income and business opportunities. Their stories are inspiring young people to consider local entrepreneurship in agriculture rather than seeking employment overseas. Time now for international updates, but before that, let's have a recap of the headlines. Nepal faces severe cooking gas shortage. Consumers queue for LPG as authorities warn against hoarding and black market sales. Kathmandu garbage disposal comes to a halt following a strike by disposal site locals citing unfulfilled agreements. Kathmandu air pollution sees temporary drop. Rain improves AQI but experts stress for long-term measures. Nepal passport services to be temporarily disrupted for system upgrades. Citizens urged to apply early as full stabilization may take 3 months. Israel targets over 200 sites in Iran as tensions escalate. Lebanese bridge destroyed in strikes on Hezbollah. A Nepali team embarks for Delhi to participate in IAU 50-kilometer World Championships. 5-member team bid farewell at the airport. Eight Islamic and Arab countries on Thursday condemned Israel for keeping Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem closed during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. Israel has shut all holy sites in East Jerusalem's old city for security reasons after it began airstrikes with the United States against Iran that have sparked a regional war. The closure coincides with Ramadan, when tens of thousands of Palestinian Muslims would normally pray every Friday at the mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. The foreign ministers of Egypt, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Pakistan said continuing to restrict access was illegal and unjustified and provocative against worshippers.
8 countries issued a joint press release on closure of the gates of Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is a very disturbing development, particularly since it's taking place in the last Ashra of this holy month. So whilst everybody wants to go to Al-Aqsa Mosque and pray there in these around the clock, but particularly more so in these last 10 days of Ramadan. So it's extremely deplorable. We issued a joint statement and we called upon the Israeli authorities to open these gates forthwith. And of course, these issues will be taken up at the relevant international forum.
China said on Friday it will donate $200,000 to the parents of students killed in what it called an indiscriminate missile strike on a school in Iran early in the Middle East war. Iranian media reports said funerals were held for at least 165 people, including children killed in the strike. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun called the strike a severe violation of international humanitarian law.
我们对伊朗霍尔木兹干省沙贾雷塔耶贝小学 遇难学生表示深切哀悼，向遇难学生家属致以诚挚慰问。中国红十字会决定向伊朗红新月会提供20万美元紧急人道主义援助，专门用于慰问和抚恤遇难学生家长。中方愿继续本着人道主义精神，向伊方提供必要帮助，支持伊朗人民渡过难关。
Moving on, security has been tightened at Matala Rajapaksa International Airport ahead of the repatriation of 84 Iranian sailors who died when their frigate IRI Astana was torpedoed on March 4 just off the coast of Sri Lanka. The sailors were killed when the vessel was sunk by a U.S. submarine in an incident that extended the Middle East war to the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka's foreign ministry said all domestic procedures have been completed and Iran will send a chartered aircraft to return the remains on Friday. A local undertaker said the embalmed remains of the Iranian sailors were being sent back in sealed boxes. They are to be flown out of Sri Lanka from Matala International Airport in the south of the country, officials said, as security was stepped up at the airport, which is located within a wildlife sanctuary. Sri Lanka is currently hosting 251 Iranian sailors, including 32 rescued from the Dana, some of whom remain under care or are being held at an Air Force base in the south. 3 crew members believed to be trapped aboard a Thai bulk carrier hit by projectiles while traveling through the crucial Strait of Hormuz were yet to be rescued on Thursday, the vessel's owner said. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said Wednesday they had struck the Thai-registered Mayuri Nari as well as the Liberia-flagged vessel in the strait because the ships had ignored warnings. The Thai ship was struck Wednesday morning while transiting through the Gulf waterway after departing Khalifa port in the UAE.
Thailand is not a party to the conflict. We are a neutral party. That vessel didn't carry anything in terms of which would be of strategic assets or strategic importance. You know, there were no. It did not carry any oil, gas. I think it was bulk cargo, and so you know, and I think that had to be that should have been taken into consideration.
Afghan authorities said Pakistani attacks on Kabul and several border provinces killed 4 people in the capital and 2 in the east, marking the latest deadly clashes between the neighbors. Pakistani security sources said 4 terrorist camps and support infrastructure were targeted and destroyed in Kabul and frontier provinces, along with an oil storage facility at Kandahar International Airport. Islamabad launched the military operation last month against Afghanistan, saying it was targeting Islamist extremists following a rise in attacks in Pakistan. Kabul police spokesperson Khalil Jadran said 4 people were killed and 15 wounded when homes were hit in the capital, with women and children among the victims. The Taliban government denied involvement in militancy, while Pakistan insisted it had not killed civilians, though casualty claims from both sides remain difficult to independently verify. Meanwhile, Canada is investing heavily in new icebreakers as part of efforts to strengthen its presence in the increasingly contested Arctic, with construction underway at a major shipyard in North Vancouver. Prime Minister Mark Carney recently announced nearly 35 billion Canadian dollars or $25.7 billion in Arctic funding, most of it aimed at upgrading existing military infrastructure. 2 new icebreakers costing more than 3 billion Canadian dollars each are being built, including one at Seaspan and another partly constructed in Finland. The investment comes as melting Arctic ice opens access to minerals and new shipping routes, intensifying competition and strategic interest in the region. Let's take a short breather. We shall be back with the business updates.
Oil prices have again risen above $100 per barrel as energy markets see little relief amid the biggest disruption to global energy supplies in a generation. Brent crude, the international benchmark, surged more than 9% on Thursday as traders weighed the prospects of weeks or even months of turmoil in energy markets as the United States and Israel wage war on Iran. Asian stock markets, including exchanges in Tokyo, Seoul, and Hong Kong, opened sharply lower on Friday, following steep losses on Wall Street overnight. The latest surge in oil prices came after Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei pledged to maintain the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz, which normally transports about 1/5 of global oil supplies. Meanwhile, the United States loosened sanctions on other countries buying Russian oil and petroleum already loaded on vessels at sea to curb the economic impact of the US-Israel war with Iran. Economic ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, gathered in Bonifacio Global City for the 32nd Economic Ministers Retreat hosted by the Philippines. Philippine Trade Secretary Cristina Roque called on member states to deepen economic ties and strengthen regional resilience amid global headwinds, including the conflict in the Middle East.
Recent developments in the Middle East reminds us of our interconnectedness. Geopolitical tensions are no longer distant headlines. They are immediate economic shocks. They manifest in volatile energy markets, disrupted shipping lanes, and shifting investor confidence. This body will ensure that we are not just reacting to global shifts, we are navigating them together.
Ministers discussed measures to boost the region's economic resilience and exchanged views on current regional and global economic developments. Talks also focused on key initiatives such as negotiations on the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement aimed at accelerating the bloc's digital economy. The meeting also reviewed ASEAN economic priorities under the Philippines' 2026 chairship theme, Navigating Our Future Together. The ministers also exchanged views on the current regional and global economic developments, enhancement of ASEAN economic community performance monitoring, as well as a number of key initiatives such as Timor-Leste's accession to ASEAN economic agreements and ASEAN's external economic relations issues.
We begin our executive.
An AI agent tool called OpenClaw is rapidly gaining popularity in China, drawing strong interest from tech companies and users, despite official cybersecurity warnings. Developed by Austrian programmer Peter Steinberger, the tool allows users to connect it to existing AI models and automate real-world tasks, such as sending emails, organizing files, and booking flights. Major Chinese tech firms, including Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, and ByteDance, are offering cloud services and affordable coding plans to support deployment of the technology, which is seen as safer than downloading it onto a personal computer. Several cities such as Wuxi and Hangzhou have also pledged funding to promote adoption and development of OpenClaw and other AI agents. However, Chinese cybersecurity authorities have warned users to exercise caution due to risks that such agents could gain broad access to personal digital services if compromised. People have been crossing the Colombia-Ecuador border on foot as transport blockades and trade disruptions limit normal movement between the two countries. The situation had worsened after traders blocked a road by installing a container in Ipiales, in Colombia's Nariño department, protesting the trade war between the government of Gustavo Petro and Daniel Noboa, which includes the imposition of tariffs. The dispute escalated after Ecuador raised tariffs on Colombian imports to 50%, following an earlier 30% levy imposed by President Noboa, who has accused Colombia of failing to cooperate on efforts to combat drug trafficking and illegal mining. The expanding trade conflict is now affecting cross-border commerce, supply chains, and economic activity in both countries.
Time for sports update.
Claudio Fabian Tapia, head of the Argentine Football Association AFA, appeared in court on Friday as part of an investigation into alleged tax evasion. 4 other senior AFA officials also attended the proceedings alongside Tapia. The investigation focuses on financial irregularities and potential evasion of tax obligations by the association. Tapia has denied any wrongdoing while authorities continue to examine the organization's financial records. The case has drawn widespread attention in Argentina, highlighting ongoing scrutiny of transparency and governance in the country's football administration. And now it's time for weather updates, first from Nepal and then across the world. Now, before we wrap up, a reminder of our top stories once again. Nepal faces severe cooking gas shortage. Consumers queue for LPG as authorities warn against hoarding and black market sales. Kathmandu garbage disposal comes to a halt following strike by disposal site locals citing unfulfilled agreements. Kathmandu air pollution sees temporary drop. Rain improves AQI, but experts stress for long-term measures. Nepal passport services to be temporarily disrupted for system upgrade. Citizens urged to apply early as full stabilization may take 3 months. Israel targets over 200 sites in Iran as tensions escalate. Lebanese bridge destroyed in strikes on Hezbollah. And Nepali team embarks for Delhi to participate in IAU 50km World Championships. 5-member team bid farewell at the airport. That is all for today. Do join us through our social media and visit us at www.nepaltelevision.com for more information and news. I am April Agising Lama. Thank you for staying with us. Good night.